All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the pre-show. I don't even have the lights on yet. I don't have my earphones in yet. I am just getting started. Let's turn some light on. There we go. See? Now it's a real live stream. I can't hear me. So let's get that going as well. There goes the tweets. So I know that part's working. Very nice. Good, good. And what else? What else? I think we're just about ready. Oh, I need to put stuff on the screen. All right. Let's, we may be having some problems. Just before going live, the power flickered. I mean, went out for like 10 seconds and then came back on. So I suspect we might have problems on the internet stream. We're going to find out. We are recording locally. So if there are any problems with the stream and the video made afterwards, we will have a copy that we can upload that will be complete. Recording multiple places locally. Let's get Keynote going. Keynote, there it is. But Google is telling me on the YouTube side that there could be some buffering involved. I suspect there's some issues with that. Let's put this up here. Whoops. Let's put this up there. Let's put this over here. Let's put this right there. Oh, I'm way behind. I am way behind. Welcome. Welcome. Let's check the analytics. Hi, everybody. You're joining just fine. Let's do a quick check of some cameras. Those are good. Oh, I need to make the, on my website, you can't see underneath the video, you can't see the chat. We'll fix that right now. Update. Now, if you refresh the /live page, you should have a chat at the bottom. The chat is also available from the chat menu as well. It's the live event chat. But if you refresh the page, professormesser.com/live, you should be able to see that chat on the page now, which makes all the difference if you're planning to chat. Oh, let's change the front page of the website too. Look, it's a bear. That's a random image thing that comes up every time I do a new tab. It's a Flickr, not Flickr, I forget the add-on that I have in Chrome to do that. Let's change the front page of the website, promo bar, so that it shows everyone my live A+ study group is right now. Click here to join us. And it'll be /live. And save the changes. All right, that's done. I think the website's done. The PDU is good. This is here. Oh, you know what I need? I need study group. Let's do a couple things. Let's do a thing here with this. And let's grab this. Let's go out to my cloud drive. Where's my cloud? I need some course notes. Course notes. There's one, and I need the other one. Let's put on the left side. No, I need it. Can I just do left side that way? I guess I can't. I'm using the wrong keys, apparently. Doing a corner. That's all right. We'll make it work. 901, 902. And what else we got going on? Socrative is up. Do we have Keynote going? Keynote is going. So you should be able to see a number of different things here and here. Very nice. Very nice, although that doesn't need to be there. What about graphic? Yeah, the graphic's good. All right. Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. The website, you can find all the information you need for answering questions, watching live in the chat on professormesser.com/live. Chat is there. I'm looking at the chat. Hello. Hey, Vanna. Yes, the internet, not so great. I'm wondering, let's do a quick MTR. Let's do a quick MTR of 9999. Do I have MTR on here? I think I do. I need to just sudo MTR. I think they changed MTR. And then I need to put in my password, which I want to be sure you don't see. There you go. Right now, I'll let looking at these numbers go by. You're looking over my shoulder. Numbers are pretty good. So that part's good. So if you can't hear anything, you're in the wrong place. Multiple choice questions are on Socrative, the instructions on how to join Socrative, which you can go to with professormesser.com/QA. Will take you to the page that has the questions on it. So that's a quick, but there's a lot of links on professormesser.com/live, which give you links to pretty much everything. It's top of the hour. I don't feel like I'm ready to go, but we're going to go anyway, because that's how we're going to do it. So am I recording? Yes, I am. Recording this. Phone is turned off. This is ready to go. I think we're just going to do this, people. We haven't even done, we haven't even looked at the birds today. So it's just how it goes. We'll look in the after show. Let's do a live stream. One moment, please. We're going to go to start this thing up, everybody. Okay, here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the December 2017 Professor Messer A+ study group. I'm going to ask you questions today about A+. I hope you're ready for this next hour of Q&A. At the end of the hour, we close the official study group and we start the after show of the study group. So if you want to stick around after the Q&A, I'll open up phone lines. You can call in. You can ask me questions that have to do with A+. It might have to do with nothing that we've talked about. They're just open phone lines. You're welcome to call in. It gives me something to do when this is all over, so I can see what's up with you guys. There's so much happening here. We've got plenty of questions available for you this particular month. We're at the last study group of the month here in December, and I've got probably other questions that are not related to A+ in the after show too. We can talk about more of those. We'll get to the questions in just a moment. I want to let you know that I thank you very much for being here. I thank you also very much for watching this live and watching the replays, and also for helping keep all of this going, and couldn't do it without your help. This is something we do every month. I have the studio dial-in lines. You can also find those lines available on professormesser.com/live is the live stream with the chat at the bottom, which I'm looking at on the screen. So if you have questions during the live stream, you're welcome to put them there. And people are asking, have we started yet? Well, that's a good question. I guess that's kind of up to you at this point. Don't forget about our YouTube channel, professormesser.com/YouTube. And Twitter, professormesser.com/Twitter. You get those free daily A+ pop quizzes on Twitter. And don't forget about paying for vouchers. There's a discount on the Professor Messer website, professormesser.com/vouchers. So you can get a little bit of a discount there as well. Plenty to talk about there. If you are watching this for continuing education unit credit, you can earn up to 10 webinar-based. I guess for A+, it's 4 webinar-based CEUs. For Network Plus, it's 6. And for Security Plus, it's 10. Just by watching this. I'll give you a special code word sometime in this first hour, and I will explain to you how you can send me an email to be able to receive one of these digital certificates and be able to say, yes, you were here, you saw this, you get that 1 hour of CEU credit. The 229.01 and 229.02 are the current A+ exams as we sit here in December of 2017. The exams 901, 902 that make up the A+ certification were released on December 15th. So this is one where you do have to think about this 3-year transaction, this 3-year update cycle that CompTIA has. So if you think about that, we're probably still going to have the 901, 902 around. We'll probably see the next iteration of A+ somewhere appear in December 2018. So we got a year from now before you would even ever see a new version. And then CompTIA gives another 6 months overlap period. So if you're thinking right now of taking the A+, now's a great time. You've got a year and a half before this version of the exam goes away. So you're in great shape with those types of things. The A+ exam itself has a lot of information on it. It has everything on the 901 is hardware, networking, mobile devices, and hardware network troubleshooting. The 902 exam, Windows operating systems, other operating systems, because Mac OS and Linux are on there, security, software troubleshooting, and operational procedures. These are big certification exams. These are not walk in the park. There's nobody out there that can walk into these exams and know everything that's on the exam. Very few people could ever think of doing that. It's just so broad, so many different topics across so much. For that reason, if you're someone who's looking to take the exam, I do have a couple of books available. They are my Pop Quiz Collection PDFs, where I've taken 800 questions for the 901 and 700 questions for the 902, and I've put them into an electronic PDF where you can click through the PDF very quickly to go through the questions. It's a neat little design on how you can do this. There's a sample you can download. Go to professormesser.com/PQC for Pop Quiz Collection. And you can try it out yourself. It's just something to help with the A+. There is also Pop Quiz Online. I put some questions from our study groups onto an online quiz that you can take. Hundreds of questions there for the 901, 902. Those are free. Absolutely free. ProfessorMesser.com/popquiz will get you there. And one of the things that I like to work with whenever I work through all of those things is trying to find a way to make this available as a podcast. So you can also listen in your podcast catcher to my study groups. They'll just automatically appear. Go to ProfessorMesser.com/podcasts to subscribe with your favorite podcast listening application, probably even built into your mobile device. And it just magically appears there. Nothing that you really have to do to have that there. So the question we have today is really about this. Here we go. This is the questions we're going to go through today. It's first from a third-party product for Socrative, third-party website. But I put all my questions there, and you're able to answer those questions online by going to ProfessorMesser.com/QA. Now, there are also Socrative student apps that you can download from your favorite app store. And if you do that, it will ask you for a room name. The room name is Professor Messer, ProfessorMesser. Funny how that works. But that's how you would get there. If you're ever trying to figure that out, go to ProfessorMesser.com/live. There's plenty there that can tell you all about how to connect and see these questions, because there's a question available for you right now. The first question we do has nothing to do with technology, by the way. It's just to make sure you can get into the online question and answer system, because the question is, what is tomato, cucumber, bell pepper, onion and garlic, olive oil, wine vinegar, water, and salt? Maybe some stale bread on there as well. There's a number of different options available you should be able to see. We have pizza, gazpacho, tomato sandwich, split pea soup, and Hot Pocket. So one of those is the right one. So I think we kind of know. Yeah, this is all of my questions for some reason. The first question today, for some reason, always tends to be something related to food. And today is no difference. There's food here. I need to get rid of all these things on my screen so you can actually see this. I've got downloads here. There we go. Now you can see the whole question. There it is. And some of you are already in here. You're already answering the question. So it must be working, right? You must have that there. I lost power to the studio minutes before going online. Power went off for 5 seconds, 10 seconds, and then came back on. So the fact that we're even here right now answering the question is pretty darn good. I have UPS on everything. So hardly anything in the studio powered down. But boy, that's not what you like to see just before going live. So what do you think the right question is? 70% of us said gazpacho. And I'd say, yeah, you're absolutely right. Today, December the 6th, National Gazpacho Day. So there you go. This is one where we know now our Q&A works. So at least we're able to answer questions in the rest of the study group. Hopefully you were able to get into ProfessorMesser.com/QA and answer those things as well. So let's do some IT questions now. Enough gazpacho questions. Enough questions about food. Let's actually do some IT questions. For many of you, you realize when you're taking this exam and you go into the exam room and you sit down, the first set of questions you get on the exam are not going to be multiple choice. They're going to be anything but multiple choice. They might be fill in the blank. They might be putting you at a command line and asking you to perform a function. They might be matching. They might be putting things in order from highest to lowest or lowest to highest. CompTIA calls these performance-based questions. I usually will tell people to jump over all of the performance-based questions, answer all of the multiple choice, and then come back to the performance-based. That's how I like to do it. But that's one of those challenges you might run into when working through here. I have for you, though, a performance-based question to start us off. So this is just like a real exam. First question we get, performance-based question. Here we go. So don't let the exam anxiety get to you. So on the left side of this view, I have a series of commands. They're Linux commands, oddly enough. And on the right side are a series of descriptions for these commands. Now, the question is, I want to put these together. Now, if you think they're matched up perfectly, you can put into Socrative, if I click the button, there we go, a fill in the blank. You can put into Socrative 1A, 2B, 3C, 4D, 5E, and 6F if you think they're matched up. They're not, by the way. I would not be putting them matched up this way. But you perhaps may be able to match them up. There is a one-to-one match here. So at least I'm not giving you more on one side than the other. Those are difficult. So hopefully you're able to look at these as well and figure out all of those pieces. With all of those, this is one where you have to know some Linux. I mentioned earlier, part of the 902 exam, this is clearly a 902 question, talks about other operating systems. And those other operating systems are Mac and Linux. So we do have to know these things. So hopefully, let's go through these for the people listening in. The different commands are pwd, su, dd, iwconfig, grep, and ps. And the descriptions I have available are, A is search a file for the word naquita. B is switch to a different wireless network. C is find the process ID of your web browser. D is display the current directory path. E is back up a partition. And F is change your current shell to the root user. Now, if you think you know the answer to this one, do not answer in the chat room. You want to go to professormesser.com/QA and you want to fill in the answers. We're starting to get some answers coming in. Some of you are saying, why am I here? What is this about? Trust me, it gets a little better after this. But I wanted to hit you with some Linux because you do have to know a huge number of Linux commands on this exam. They've really stuck a lot of Linux commands in the 902 exam. So you do need to know what these are. They are in the exam objectives. For those of you wondering, the exam objectives, where am I getting this? Go to professormesser.com/objectives and you can check it out as well. That might be something for you to look at. This is a lot of detail. So make sure you go through these. I'm starting to get some answers coming in. We're not going to look at the answers on my side on this one, but we're going to go through what we think these are. Hopefully you've even worked with some of these before. You might be able to get rid of some possibilities to do this. All your performance-based questions are at the beginning of the exam. The chat room people are talking about those. So that's why I tell people you can jump over them. On the CompTIA exams, you're allowed to jump around to any question you'd like. It's not that way in a lot of industry exams. A lot of industry exams start you at question 1. Once you answer question 1, you can't go back. In fact, some industry exams will change the exam based on how you answer. They think you don't know something. They'll keep asking you to see if that's something you really don't know or not. Maybe not. The chat room people are asking, is there partial credit for performance-based? CompTIA does not share their grading. They have said and have put into their frequently asked questions files that there are some questions where partial credit is provided. They have changed that frequently asked question over time. When they first answered that question online, they said rarely would you expect to get multiple choice on the performance-based questions, be able to get a partial credit for performance-based. They've said, that's you rarely. But now they've changed their language a bit and said, yeah, you might. You could get partial credit. I'm not sure that's really changing the language as much as making it more vague because it could still be rare. They just might not be telling you. Let's see how you did, though, on the questions. A lot of you are answering these already. I think a lot of you are doing pretty well with this. Let's just reveal the answer to all of these all at once, shall we? Here we go. Boom. Here they are. So here are the proper differences between these. The pwd command number 1 is the answer is D, display the current directory path. Number 2 was SU. The command was change your current shell to the root user. SU actually allows you to change your current shell to almost any user you'd like. Well, not almost, to any user you'd like. So the root user obviously is one we do very, very often with the SU. DD is backup a partition. It's one of the many things DD can do, but very commonly that's what we use to do backups. IWconfig, switch to a different wireless network. That is the wireless version of ifconfig. Think of it that way. And grep will search a file for the word naquita. So that's one word. Grep's great for searching through a file to find some information. That's a good example of how you would use it. And PS, process command. Find the process ID of your web browser. Among other things, PS is another one of those Linux commands that you can do 150 things with. And one very common thing is to find process ID information. So hopefully you were able to get some of those right. If you did not, the chat room's sort of groaning over the answers. So if you did not get all of those right, here's your opportunity to learn some. The exam objectives have a big list of Linux commands you need to know about. And I don't think they're expecting you to know all 150 different ways to use PS. I think they are trying to get you to understand broadly what these commands do. But that's my perspective of it based on what I've heard and seen. But hopefully you can go through this list. I tried to temper that in my video. So the video that describes all of these Linux commands, I go through every single one of them, and I could give you kind of a broad perspective of this to explain what they do. I don't think CompTIA is going to be expecting you to do a lot at the command line with Linux, but I guess they could. That's one of those challenges we have. We only know so much from the exam objectives. Hopefully, you guys did pretty well with that one. So the performance-based questions out of the way. Let's do another question now. I got one ready for you. You scroll up to the top and put this here, so that you can put it in here. And the question is, which of these would be the best way to temporarily disable a laptop touchpad while using the keyboard for a presentation? Which of these, so there must be a list, right? Thankfully. Which of these would be the best way to temporarily disable a laptop touchpad while using the keyboard for a presentation? Your possible answers, if you go to Socrative.com, the Professor Messer room, or just simply type in professormesser.com/QA. The possible answers are A, disable the touchpad in the BIOS, B, connect an external keyboard, C, remove the touchpad drivers, D, use a laptop function key command, or E, physically disconnect the touchpad from the laptop motherboard. So you've got a number of options that you can use to make this happen. One of these would probably be the best way to do it. In fact, that's what the question is. They want you to know the best way to do it. So hopefully that's one that you know the best way to make that happen. It's one I think whenever you look at most of the questions on the exam, they're asking you for the best way, or they're asking you for the first thing that you should do. And this is one of those that definitely is asking you for the best way. Indeed, it's even saying which of these would be the best way to temporarily disable a laptop touchpad while using the keyboard for presentation. I've been in this situation many times because I've done thousands of presentations in front of people, so it makes sense that we would absolutely want to be able to do that, because you're up there, you're pushing buttons, suddenly you hit the mouse and everything goes a little bit off the rails. So you want to have some easy way to make it dummy proof, because I'm the dummy. I want it so that if I'm doing the presentation, nothing bad can happen. Put my phone in airplane mode. Only enable maybe the Wi-Fi. Only enable this capability. Only turn on these functions. Very, very easy to make that happen. Hopefully it'd be a good way for you to do it as well. If you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA. You can answer the question there. Please no hints in the chat room. Let's see how we did with this one. Let's flip back over. How do we do? 99 of you have answered. 80% have said, well, what you do is you use a laptop function key command. Although, as you can see, 12% said to disable the touchpad in the BIOS. We had 5% that said connect to an external keyboard, and 4% said remove the touchpad drivers. So there's a lot of options if you're trying to get one of these things done. A lot of options. I think we got a majority rule on this one. I think we really don't have much of a choice. Let's talk about these touchpads and the things we can do with it. These touchpads are very useful on these laptop computers, but there may be times you do want to enable or disable certain functions of your laptop. Fortunately, there are ways to do it. Now, one of the challenges you run into is that there are only so many keys on a laptop. There's not a separate button that just enables and disables the touchpad. There's not a separate button that just turns on and turns off some of these capabilities. So what the laptop manufacturers have done is integrate into the laptop an additional set of commands. You can see them in blue here at the top of the screen. I need to turn on my highlighter so you can really see my mouse on the screen there. But on the function keys there on the top, you can see there are options to change where the video is going, to enable or disable sounds, or as you can see with F10, to enable or disable that touchpad. That's exactly what that function does. In fact, you need to watch that. You could hit it and accidentally disable your touchpad, and then you're wondering why your touchpad's not working. So it didn't fool anyone on that one. 79% of you said D, use a laptop function key command, you would be right. But why aren't the other ones right? 13% of you said disable the touchpad in the BIOS. And your BIOS may actually allow you to enable and disable that touchpad. So that's a viable option. That would disable the touchpad, but it requires you to power down, power back up, make the BIOS modification, restart your operating system, and then you're finally up and running. Now, is that the easy way to do it, or should I just hit 2 buttons and do it while the laptop's running without having to reboot? That's why when I mentioned the best way, multiple answers could technically be correct, but only one of them is really going to be the best way. That's a really good example of that. Connect an external keyboard doesn't actually disable the touchpad. It only allows you to use an external keyboard if you plug in an external keyboard. Although that would keep your keyboard away from the computer, that wasn't the question. Make sure you go through that question. We've got remove the touchpad drivers. Well, that would permanently disable the touchpad. We're getting rid of the drivers. Can't use it anymore. I guess the idea would be later on, you would reinstall the drivers. It's another one of those, why wouldn't you just hit 2 buttons and do it? You're going through a lot of process to fix this problem, and you could have just hit a couple of buttons and it was done. Literally hit a couple of buttons. And physically disconnect the touchpad from the laptop motherboard. Another viable answer. If you can lift up the keyboard, get underneath there, disconnect the wire associated with the touchpad. For those of you that have had your laptops worked on before and they put it all back together and the touchpad didn't work, you know they didn't connect it up. That's happened to me as well. Again, not very viable, not easy, especially when you can just hit 2 buttons and it does that. So that's why when I mention these questions about being the best way, that's what I mean. Almost all of these answers would allow you to disable the touchpad, but only one of them was really the best answer, and that was D, use the laptop function key command. Now, while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to turn on my highlighting on my other computer so we can use that later on. Nice. So let's do that. Let's, in fact, do another question. In the chat room, by the way, people are asking, has this function key thing right here, has this always been around with these function keys across the top? Has that something always been there? It has, actually. From the very, very early days of laptops, we have always had this function key capability. I go back to some of the first laptop manufacturer where we had really a laptop computer, where it was something that wasn't portable computers, which we had for a while, that still you needed to sit down and plug into a power source. They were finally laptop computers that worked with a battery that was connected to the device. They were still quite large, but you could take them anywhere, turn them on, and they were a real computer. And they had limited space. There wasn't so much room on the keyboard. So yes, we had that function key right from the very beginning of those old compact laptop devices. Compact was very big in laptops at that time. They were one of the leaders before they were bought by HP. Who bought Compact? Why is that? Why am I lacking all of a sudden somebody bought Compaq. I don't want to say it was HP. And that's when laptops were just being created, and those function keys were really useful. So, yep, we still use them today. It's very useful whenever you need that. Yep, there you go. HP bought Compaq. I wasn't losing it. I was losing it a little bit. But that's okay. You can stay with me. Let's do another question. Here's a question talking about SOHO networks. The question is, which of the following would prevent unauthorized users from automatically receiving an IP address when connecting to a SOHO network? Which of the following would prevent unauthorized users from automatically receiving an IP address when connecting to a SOHO network? Your possible answers are A, disable the DHCP server, B, disable WPS, C, keep the network devices in a locked cabinet, D, disable SSID broadcasts, or E, use WPA2. One of these would prevent unauthorized users from automatically receiving an IP address when connecting to a SOHO network. One of those. It's a little bit of a leading question. You do have to read these questions very carefully. This one doesn't have a best answer, does it? This one's because this answer is very specific to the question. The question builds all of the different components into it so that there can only really be one answer. You will see questions like that on your exam as well, where it's a very involved question with very specific words, and the very specific words are there so that you can answer questions like, which of these would prevent unauthorized users from automatically receiving an IP address when connecting to a SOHO network? How would they do it? How would they do it? This is a pretty good one. Actually, this one sort of could go a couple of different ways. This is one I might give partial credit on. Actually, I don't give any credit, so I can say that. None of you don't even get credit when it's right. Why would I give you credit when it's only partially right? That's one of those. Yeah, it's a tough one. You can't change the answer to do that once you're locked in, but it's not like I'm keeping track. I have no idea who's connecting to the Socrative side and answering the Socrative questions. Have no idea. I don't ask you for any emails or phone numbers or names or anything. And I don't keep the stats when we're done. That's not what this is about. So hopefully we can figure out those pieces. Question real quick from the chat room, since we're waiting to get all the answers in, is can I take the 902 before I take the 901? Yes, you can take them in any order you would like. And there's no specific time between taking them. You just have to get both of them completed before the exam series is retired. And as I mentioned, we're thinking it's going to be retired like in the summer of 2019. So if you can get both exams, if you could have taken the first exam the first day, December of 2015, and you could take the second exam the last day it's available in the summer of 2019, and you would be A+ certified. So there you go. That's one of those. So you got plenty of time to do this now. Never wait to get certified. Always take those exams as soon as you can. Much more important to have the certification than waiting around. I don't know why people say they would want to wait. Do not wait to be able to do that. Let's see how we did with this answer. We've got a number of different options here. 53% of us, the majority, said to disable the DHCP server. Be one way to do it. The next highest, tie for second, 21% apiece, would be to disable SSID broadcasts. The other is to use WPA2. 5% said to disable WPS, and 1% said to keep the network devices in a locked cabinet, which I think that is probably good. Just keep everything locked up. Then security is perfect. Well, oh, we have to connect it to something. That's right. That's not going to work for us. So let's think about the question. The question here is in fact, let me back up to the question here. Here's our question. Which of the following would prevent unauthorized users from automatically receiving an IP address when connecting to a SOHO network? I put in some unnecessary information here because the exams seem to do this. Which of the following would prevent unauthorized users from automatically receiving an IP address when connecting to a SOHO network? The answer, interestingly enough, also prevents authorized users from automatically receiving an IP address when connecting to a SOHO network. And that's in there specifically because there is some questions about what we're talking about there. IP addressing, though, whenever we're connecting to these networks and we get an IP address automatically, we're getting that IP address through a dynamic host configuration protocol server, DHCP. DHCP is this automated process. We had to create sort of this automation because in the early days of IP, there was no automated way to hand out IP addresses. We used to use, probably before IP was extremely popular, Novell NetWare was the network operating system of choice. That's what everybody had, was Novell NetWare. Before Microsoft came along with all of their popularity, it was Novell. They were the king of the road. And Novell used a protocol called IPX, which did not require any addressing on the workstation. You simply connected the workstation to the network, and it got its IP address and was able, or not its IPX address, and it was able to communicate with its IPX address without any configurations at all by anyone. It was magical. It was great, which is one of the reasons it was popular. Then IP came along. IP became popular. There were many good reasons to have TCP/IP on our networks. And we realized, we have to manually configure these things. So, of course, we created a way. Originally started with bootp, and now it's called DHCP. That's how we do it. It's very easy, by the way, to see these IP addresses if the network is not encrypted over the wireless. You can see all your IP addresses that are there. And obviously, if the encryption's not working, you'll see all of that as well. Disabling or manually requiring the manual configuration of IP addresses is not security, by the way, which was the point for me putting in the question unauthorized users. Disabling an automated IP address method doesn't provide any security at all. It's not there. Sort of the reason people talk about SSID broadcasts, not security. Disabling DHCP, it's not security. It's actually called security through obscurity. We think that by making it hard, making it difficult to be able to do something, or hiding something behind a screen suddenly makes it more secure. Well, it doesn't. You just move the screen. Just push that screen out of the way and now you can see it. So that's similar function to have that there. Now, a lot of you even mentioned, if you don't have a DHCP server and your system is configured to look for a DHCP server, you will not get an address. Some operating systems will assign you address automatically, an API-PA address, the automatic IP addressing methodology. That API-PA address is a function of the operating system, not of DHCP. API-PA is not part of the DHCP standard or methodology. It's not provided by a DHCP server, obviously. It's something that your operating system must support in IPv4 for that to work. And not all operating systems will set your machine up with an API-PA address. So you can't guarantee that that's going to happen either. And of course, that function itself could be disabled in the operating system as well. So it's one of those that you do have to think about. So in this case, when we talk about this question that does say, which of the following would prevent unauthorized users from automatically receiving an IP address when connecting to a SOHO network, disabling WPS doesn't prevent IP addresses, or keeping the networks on a locked cabinet doesn't help. Having disabling SSID broadcasts has nothing to do with IP addressing, and using WPA2 would prevent everyone from getting access. But if it's an unauthorized user on your network and they get the WPA2 address, they're still going to get an IP address. So the real answer here that we were looking for was A, disable the DHCP server is the only way to prevent unauthorized users from automatically receiving an IP address when connecting to a SOHO network. The 54% of you got that one right. Well done with all of those answers. I think you guys are on this. You know all about this at this point. One of the things you've noticed in all of these questions, whether they're on the 901 or 902, there's a lot of content here, tons of content. All of those are extensive in their content. So one of the things you want to do is, when you're looking through all of these questions, all of these videos, is make some notes. Write some things down. You're going to be writing things about hardware, networking, and printers, and operating systems, and command lines, and troubleshooting. It's all in the video, and I highly recommend that you absolutely go through these videos and take your own notes. It's pretty important. There's a lot of videos, though, and I get a lot of you just don't have time to write all the notes, and there is a lot of content in the videos. So what I've done is I've created a set of notes myself. I've got them available on the website for both the 901 and the 902 exam. These are the PDF course notes right in front of you. You can see lots of graphics, all of the detail that you need from the videos. I tried to go through every single video and find the things that I thought were important. Go through all of those. Maybe that's something you can use as well. This also helps keep the website going. You can get immediate access to the 901 or the 902 course notes. They're $15 each. You can find out information at professormesser.com/A+CN. If you're someone who you don't like the digital stuff, you'd rather have something that's physical, I have a physical version too. So you can, of course, there's the physical course notes. So it's for the 901 and the 902 in one single book. This is how many pages of just raw content? Over 45, 46, 47 pages of raw notes, all written out. So if you're trying to learn what all those little things are in the book, it's all there. It's kind of washed out because of the lights that are up. But this is, that's the book form of that. A little bit extra for the book, but some people just love to have that physical thing there. I get it. So you can find out how to buy all of those, professormesser.com/A+CN. So that's one of those that might help when you're working through all of those pieces. That's one I think might help you too, as well as you're going through your studies. And if you're taking your Network Plus or Security Plus or any of the other courses on my site, you've got notes for those as well. So don't forget about taking advantage of everything available to you. Let's do some more questions. Chat room asks if I will release an autobiography. Nope. I am an enigma. You are never going to hear those stories ever. Nope. You'll have to ask Mrs. Professor Messer. She'll tell you all about it. Let's do some more questions. Which of these utilities would be the best choice for something? For rebuilding the boot configuration data store. Which of these utilities would be the best choice for rebuilding the boot configuration data store? I have some options for you, and then I'll answer some of these questions from the chat room. The possible answers are A, disk part, B is regedit, C, fixboot, D, bootrec, E, scanOS. Which of those utilities would be the best choice for rebuilding the boot configuration data store? I guess we sort of have to know what the boot configuration data store is, and then we have to know how to, rebuild it, whatever that means, right? One of those. So in the chat room, some people were asking if the hard copies of the notes are autographed, these things. They are not. They're actually printed on demand through a third party that I partnered with because I don't have a printing shop here. So they're actually printed and shipped from a single facility, and they just print them out and send them out for me, which was nice of them. Because I just don't have, I'm not always here, and I don't have a place to put all the inventory. It's not a big room. It's just me and a camera. So it helps that somebody else is building them as we go and can put them out. So unfortunately, no autographs because they're printed in Minnesota and sent to you, and I'm in Florida. So that doesn't help very much. We would have to have a nice long pen to be able to get there. Unfortunately not. The boot configuration data store, I'm going to take a sneak peek, by the way, as you guys are answering this one, because this one would be good to be able to have here. What's interesting about this one is that I think there's a few options available to, well, not really. For the exam that we're dealing with, the 901, 902 exam, this is a 902 question. There's only one answer. So that should help. And I'm already in the chat room. They're already asking, is that 901, 902? I thought you would ask. I could feel it. So it would be a 902 question. And as you can see, when I go to the answer page on these, the exam and the exact name of the video is on there. So you can always find it and the number for the exam objectives. Let's see how we did with this answer. How do we do? Click. Oh, we're got a tie for first effectively. We had 46% said boot rec and 43% said fix boot. Only 7% said regedit, only 4% said disk part, and nobody said scanOS. What? So what would it be? What would the right answer be? Let's talk about rebuilding the boot configuration data, BCD. You'll hear this. Everybody talks about this as the BCD. That's what we do with this is rebuild the BCD. When you start your computer, normally it just starts Windows. Just goes right into it because that's the only option on your computer. But you could set up multiple boot options before your operating system starts up. You could decide to boot Windows. You could decide to boot Windows with some debugging functionality so that you can watch drivers loaded as it starts up. That's my default for all of my Windows, so I can watch all the drivers loading. You might want to have your front end, instead of starting Windows, go start a Linux partition that I have. Go over to that partition, start up Linux. Your Windows boot manager can do that, to have that there. But if that all of that information that you see when this starts up is rebuild BCD. This is not a Linux question. This is a Windows question because this is a Windows front end that provides this, the boot configuration data store. This BCD can sometimes get corrupted or deleted. And when that happens, you need to rebuild it. So this might help you. Yes, in the chat room, if you're going through Windows 10 study material, you're not studying for this exam since Windows 10 is not on this exam. So this is a Windows VISTA 7, Windows 8, and a Windows 10 command. We won't be talking about Windows 10, but it is one of those options for Windows. All of the Windows that you need to know for the exam, this applies to all of them. That helps. So you only have to remember one thing. That helps too. Remember as little as I need to cram it in my brain, be ready for the exam. The command to rebuild the boot configuration data command is effectively the same command you would use for most functions for rebuilding things, for fixing the boot sector, for fixing a volume, boot information, all of this. It's the boot rec command. And there's an option within the boot rec command to rebuild BCD, which oddly enough rebuilds the BCD, the boot configuration data. A nifty command to run into. I have an example of the command on here. So you can see this right here. And that applies, as I mentioned, to VISTA, Windows 7, Windows 8, 8.1, which is why that's there as well. So if you were one of the folks that answered, which one is it? Oh yeah, boot rec. It's the boot rec / rebuild BCD. So it would be the boot rec command. The 47% of you that answered boot rec got it right. Fix boot was the older command in XP. Those are some XP folks right there. So you were using the fix boot command. It actually was a different command than fix boot, I believe. Was it fix boot rebuild BCD? It might have been. Back in the day. To have that there. Regedit, only 8%, not correct. Disk part, to change the disk partitioning, 3% said that one, but that's not what you use to rebuild the boot configuration data store. Regedit's once you've already got things started up, and ScanOS is not the right one either. It is useful to have that command, to have that there, but not ScanOS. It's definitely dboot rec. That would be the right answer. Now, if you're watching this video for continuing education unit credit, then you want to go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. There's a Contact Us link there. It's really Contact Me. Sends me a note directly. On that Contact Us link, it will bring up a form that asks for your name, for your email address. Make sure those are right because those are going into the thing I'm sending back to you. And somewhere in that note, you can just put the word boot rec if you want. But you can also put other things in there too because I read them. I receive these, I sit down, I'm in front of the TV, and I go through and I start sending these out. So that would be useful to have that there. So make sure you put that word somewhere in that message, boot rec. That's your super secret code word of the month. Send that to me, and sometime in the next week or so, I hope, I will send back to you an email that has a digitally signed message that says, you must have watched this because you knew all about the super secret code word. And that'll be 1 hour of webinar CEU that you could use if you are collecting CEUs. A number of you these days are doing the single tasks that they have on the CompTIA website that get you all of your CEUs at once. You pay them like $100 and they do that on the website now. So it's just something a little bit easier. You still have to go through a course, but they have that on the website so you don't have to collect things from me anymore. But some of you still like to do that, and I'm more than happy to send it to you by clicking on the Contact Us, put in your information, put in the word boot rec, and tell me. It helps also if you tell me that this is the December 2017 study group. I can sometimes find it, though. I'll figure it out. We can have a conversation. We'll make sure it goes through there. In the chat room, people were asking other questions as well. Let's quickly go there while we ask some of these. Oh, when is the A+ certification going to drop VISTA? Well, when the A+ certification was released, VISTA was still relatively popular. This was only 2 years ago. It's hard to believe so much has changed in 2 years. Windows 8 had been out for a bit. 8.1 had been out for a little while, not very long, but it was out about a year. And then suddenly everybody shifted over to 10. So if I look at the statistics of who's hitting my website, Windows 10, if we talk about Windows operating systems, Windows 10 is the vast majority of who's hitting my website now. Microsoft has done a very good job of upgrading everybody to Windows 10. I almost think they took the dive in Windows 8 just so they could force everybody to Windows 10. Of course, it sort of helps that the operating system itself is forcing everybody into Windows 10. So that's one of those things as well, to have that there. Let's do another question, though. We got some time. Let's go through another one. This is a video daily double. Well, a picture daily double. Not really a video. A photo daily double. The question is, you're working with a server in the data center, and you find a cable with this connector. Now, I realize, folks of you that are listening to the podcast, this connector doesn't help much. I'll explain what it is in a moment. It says, what is at the other end of this cable? What is at the other end of this cable? And this is a fill in the blank. So make sure you read the question very carefully and answer very carefully when I'm asking about what this is. So you're working with a server in the data center. Now, the picture that's on the screen it's green. It's a green connector at the end. It's a little circle, it looks like. It's a circular connector, right? Got a little circle at the end. And there's a bunch of pins in the middle that are also in a circle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pins in the middle in that little circle. So there you go. That's my best description of, I could do those movies that they do for people that can't see very well. Rex walks across the room and turns on the light. It sure was dark in here. It's one of those things. So that's what you see on the screen, is that green circle connector with all the pins in the middle. What the heck is it? What is that one? And having to go through all these. If you think you know the answer, go to ProfessorMester.com/QA, and you can put in an answer for all of these. I'm seeing the answers come through right now and having those there. This is one that might help you if you run into this and start doing it. This becomes a little bit easier to make that happen. Please don't answer in the chat room. You want to go to ProfessorMester.com/QA. That's where you want to go with all of these. That's how we answer the question. You have to pretend we're sitting there for the exam right now, and we're answering the question and having it come through. A number of you already answered. A lot of you have stuck the answer right in there. A lot of you are telling me what kind of connector it is. I didn't ask you what kind of connector it was. I asked you, what's at the other end of the cable? Kind of switched it up on you, didn't I? Because usually we see a picture of the connector, and normally we're asking, what is that connector? That's not what I asked you. I asked you what's on the other end of that cable. And I'll take 2 possible answers. This is one of those where there's not a single answer. It could be more than one thing. There's really, of course, only one thing. But it could possibly be 2 things. I'll explain more about that in a moment. So we've got a number of answers that have come through. Let's just have a look at the answers. A number of you have said keyboard. A number of you said PS2. Some of you have said USB, HDMI, PS2 mouse or keyboard. Don't know for sure. Me either. It's a 1x15 pin HDD sub. It is not. It's not even. No, it's not. Not an HD15, unfortunately. And again, I wasn't asking what the connector. They did. People in the chat were like, they said HDMI. They did. They were joshing me. They weren't being real. They were throwing something in there. And good for you. Because, by the way, if you don't know the answer on the exam, take a guess. Never leave an answer blank. The only way you earn points on the exam is to answer a question correctly. There's no way to lose points. There's no way to answer something right and then have those points taken away from you. So answer every possible question. Never leave a multiple choice blank ever, ever, ever. If you have a minute left and you still got 10 questions left, make them all A. Do something like that. do that. At least there would be something for you to go with there. Let's talk about what this connector is, by the way. This is a PS2 connector. This is a 6-pin mini DIN connector, DIN connector, which means it's this little round connector. It's a mini DIN. There are other DIN connectors as well. DIN is an abbreviation in German that I will not even pretend to pronounce. Shamefully, by the way, with a name like Messer. This is also a type of connector that is associated with the colors. You notice a lot of the connectors on the back of your computer have colors associated with them. That it's a suggestion. It's a guess through all of these. But the type of connector should be the same color every time. For example, the standard there's a standard called the PC System Design Guide that says if you're connecting a mini DIN with a mouse, it should be green. If you're connecting a mini DIN with a keyboard, it should be purple. Now, obviously, we don't use a lot of these connectors anymore. Although if you're in a data center, which is what I said on this question, you're going to run into these PS2 connectors because you've got some old servers in there that people have we've not virtualized it yet. It's not been rolled out. We don't even know if it supports being in a virtual environment. We're not going to touch it. We're going to use it for another 6 years, and then it's going to go away, and we're just going to let it run before that happens. So this, obviously, these days, we're plugging in the keyboards and the mouse through USB. But you've got 25 years of these legacy devices, really more than that, where you've got these PS2 connectors. And a lot of the systems that you have set up for KVM, keyboard, video, and mouse in these large data centers, connect up with some of these still using these PS2 connectors. So it's another good example of things you might run into when working through all of these challenging different connectors. And that's why in the question, I asked you very specifically, which one, what's connected to the other end of the cable? I didn't ask you what type of connector it was. So if you answered PS2, it actually not accurate. That was not the right answer. I was actually asking you for something very specific, which was what's the other end. And I would accept if you answered mouse, that really is the right answer. If you answered keyboard, it could be a keyboard as well. I've seen some of these colors mismatched occasionally with a mouse and a keyboard. So that's one that you will run into, and you will absolutely see these PS2 connectors. You can still get a motherboard today that has PS2 connectors on it. You have to find the right motherboard. They're not standard anymore. But there are a number of motherboards that have those, especially in servers where the PS2 connector was used for other things as well. So you do use it. You may find that there's a peripheral that you just have to plug in, and it has to be with this PS2 connector, and that's the way you do it. So another one of those ideas of how you can work through all of these different challenging applications and be able to make all of these work and operate. And that's one of the things when I'm going through all of the questions in the exam. That's one of the things I deal with. This, by the way, from the 22901, section 1.11, device connectors and cables. That's where that particular question came from. Now, as you've probably seen, these exams have a ton of content associated with them. And one of the things I mentioned to you is that you should try to get as much hands-on as possible. Now, you could build your own network with a bunch of different computers running Linux, Mac OS. You could run Windows Vista, Windows 7, Windows, all of these things you have to, Windows 8, 8.1 in most cases. But how could you just do this easier? Well, fortunately, the folks at GTS Learning have done this easier through their live labs. They have in my browser, I'm just in my browser screen. I didn't load any special software. I just loaded up a lab for understanding virtual printing. So I've got my virtual printing, and it's already started up some Windows 7 devices. You can see a description of the network that I've got loaded up here. There's a couple of servers and 3 workstations down here, Windows 7, Windows 8, and a Windows 8.1. And it's actually started up these operating systems, and it's connected to them through this remote desktop connection that's available right on my screen. So if I wanted to do anything with Windows, it's going to log me in, and now I'm at Windows 8. All from my browser. I didn't have to load any software here to make this happen. It's a full Windows 8 experience, for better or worse. Maybe I want to switch back to Windows 7. Maybe that would make me feel better if I was on the Windows 7 desktop. There it is. And we can go to the Start menu. We can click through. Let's start up the control panel. See, it's very fast. Let's change the keyboards or their input methods. So I've gone off script already, but there is a complete lab script here that you can step through that takes you step by step through everything with screenshots and explanations of everything you need to know. All of this information is available on the GTS Learning site, but you can get special pricing by going to professormesser.com/livelabs. They've got the entire Live Labs available for $109. That includes the GTS Learning book that I used to help create all of these videos. And they've taken all of my videos and they put them with QR codes into the book. So you can read about PS2 connectors, and then there's a video that describes the PS2 connectors. So it's kind of nice to have that there. If you just need the book, it's only $35. By following that link, if you went to the GTS Learning website, you're paying too much. Follow this link for the discount, professormesser.com/livelabs. Let's get another question in, shall we? Which of the following would be the best way to search through documents in a folder without using the index? I don't know if I want to end on this one. I think this one may be difficult. This one was hard. When I did, I thought, do I know the answer to this one? I think I do. Which of the following would be the best way to search through documents in a folder without using the index? Would it be to modify the user account information? Would it be to change the system protection maximum storage? Would it be to disable the Windows location provider? Would it be to enable a home group associated with the folder? Or would it be to configure the folder options? One of those would be the best way to search through documents in a folder without using the index. How do we do it? If you think you know how to do it, don't answer in the chat room. Go to professormesser.com/QA. The Q is for question, the A is for answer, for those of you wondering. That's what it's there. Yes, I would agree. In the chat room, we were talking about VISTA going away. And you're right. VISTA worked great a year after it was released. That first year, it got such a bad rep. And it took them a year to patch it. And they finally patched it. But they had such a bad reputation that they introduced another round of patches. And they just called it Windows 7. I mean, Windows 7 and Windows Vista, it's the same operating system. It's exactly the same thing. That's exactly what they just changed the name. This is how you get around a bad brand. You just change it. It's exactly the same thing, but now it's named something different. And Windows 7, big hit. And I always laughed at folks that said, "Yeah, but Vista was awful." I'm like, "You're using Vista now. It's just called Windows 7." No, it's Windows 7. It's a new operating system. It's not new at all. It's exactly the same thing. As you've seen, if you've gone through all the videos, you're like, the Vista and the 7, they're identical. There's really nothing in there for that. Yeah, good point. So in the chat room, somebody even mentioned the Windows 7 patch utility still had the Windows name at the top. So Windows Vista Service Pack 3. So that's what Windows 7 was. And Microsoft didn't hide it. Yeah, that's what it was. But boy, we ate it up. Windows 7 was great. They messed it up again. Windows 8 kind of messed things up again. That was a mess. Boy, that was a mess. I don't know what they were thinking. What were you thinking? And then Windows 10 fixed things. Pretty much. Although Windows 10's kind of in your face. Let's see how we did. There's a whole thing I go through with Windows 10. So I have to manage my Windows 10 streaming server. And boy, oh boy, the things to do with Windows 10. How do we do on this, though? Well, 76% of you said to configure the folder options. Should I be listening to you guys? You seem to know this pretty heavy. Double digits, though, 16% said to enable home group associated with the folder. And then single digits for disabling the Windows location provider, modifying the user account information, or changing the system protection maximum storage. I really thought nobody would get this, but you guys were all over this one. This was easy. It was indeed E, configure the folder options. This is where you can enable and disable different functions for your folders. And one of those functions will be, if I flip through the View tab, and finally the Search tab is where we configure options for how to search. This would be a good one to have that there. We could also decide whether we want to use the index when searching in the file folders for system files. Might take a little bit longer. It absolutely would. So we can disable that your system is building this entire fantastic search index. When you're not doing anything, it's indexing your system. So that when you go to the search menu, you say, please find this file. I know exactly where it is. I don't even have to look. I already did all the looking. I know your file's right here. And that's why we get such almost instantaneous response when we search for things on a drive that has hundreds of thousands of files on it. So that's one of those that does work a little bit when you work through there. Now, there may be times when you don't want to trust the index. Maybe you've decided you want to turn off that indexing process, and every time I do a search, get me the latest information. Go through the files manually until you find it. Don't deal with an index that was taken yesterday. I'm really interested in the most recent information. That's going to take some time if you do that, and it's not the default if you do that. So you have to specifically tell your system, ignore the index. And that's where you do it in the folder options. The 77% of you got that one absolutely right. Well done with that one. I'm working through all of those pieces. Every single one of these questions, by the way, came from the CompTIA exam objectives. Everything is there. If you have not downloaded the objectives, go to professormesser.com/objectives, go to the Google machine, type in CompTIA exam objectives. They're free. You can download them. It's a PDF file. Get them immediately. This should be your checklist for everything. Before you start studying, you should read all of this. In the middle of studying, you should be checking things off. And when you're done studying, you should go through this list again and make sure you know everything that's on it. If you know everything that's in your objectives, you're going to pass your exam. That's how easy. So make sure you have these objectives. I've unfortunately all the time in the chat room during the week, people will come in the chat room and say, I took the exam and I didn't pass it. They asked me so many things I wasn't expecting. I said, well, like what? Well, they asked me about folder options. Well, folder options is in the exam objectives. They asked me about these little mini DIN connectors. That's in the exam objectives. So the things they were surprised at were things that CompTIA already had listed out for you to be able to know. Make sure you have the exam objectives. Well, I will tell you that we do not have another one of these study groups until next year. Well, it's December, so in next month is January. January the 3rd, 2018 is the next A+ study group. I've got a Network Plus study group next week. And then 2 weeks from there, I've got a Security Plus study group. And then we rotate through again at the beginning of January. So January the 3rd, we should be in better shape by then. Maybe the 2nd would not have been a good day. Maybe the 1st is definitely not a good day to do a study group. The 3rd, I think, will be all right. Don't you? We'll be all right to have that thing? Maybe I think we will. So that would be the great way to do it, is show up. And if this is well after January the 3rd of 2018, you can always go to professormesser.com/calendar and you'll know exactly when the next study group is. All of my events are right there. You can join my Google Calendar. It will inform you and put it on your list of calendar things. It's all there. Keep track of what we're doing. I got a question for you every day from the A+. I write fresh new questions every weekday. Brand new questions. They're not pulled from somewhere else. I'm not recycling them through. I sit down every week and I write 5 new questions for you. You can get those professormesser.com/Twitter. You can see all the videos that we do, professormesser.com/YouTube. I should do an end of the year video of something. I haven't figured out what exactly yet. Don't forget about the course notes. This is what keeps the lights on, by the way. So thank you so much for your support with these, by the way. So important. professormesser.com/A+CN, as well as my pop quiz collection. A lot of people, I'm getting great feedback. Thank you on the pop quiz collection. Another one where I've written every single question that's in there. I have QA'd every single question that's in there. They all point very specifically to the exam objectives. It's the Q&A book I wish I had when I went through the A+ certification process. professormesser.com/PQC. My thanks again, GTS Learning. Get your best pricing there at professormesser.com/livelab. Save some money. Again, the calendar's right there always. Stick around for the next hour. I've got phone lines that are coming open. We'll answer questions from the chat room. It will be fabulous. Hopefully you'll stick around. Otherwise, we will see you next time on the A+ study group. There's no music. There's no music. There's lots of reasons for that. If there's music, you can't watch this video in certain other countries. So that's why it's kind of bland. You're thinking, where's the intro music? I've got plenty of great intro music. You're never going to hear it. Some of my old videos did, right? Let me get the phone lines open. One moment. I'm the only one here, so I'm going to get the phone lines open. What do? We click some things here. We start a show. Oh, you know what I don't have up and running? Skypey. There we go. One of these days, someone's going to call it that. Well, I guess we already do. I already do call it that. I call it Skypey. It's not Skypey. I know that. You can hold your calls and letters. I am completely aware that it is not Skypey. But there is a phone number you can call. There it is. You can call while I'm calling in as well. Let's call in and call it right there. There we
Thank
go.
you for calling Collins.
Well, you're welcome. Let me type a few things in and hit a pound sign.
Enter your 6-digit PIN number.
I think we know. Again, that is redundant. And 6 digits.
Welcome.
Welcome to you, nice lady. That was not the NPR Morning Edition theme. That's how bad my humming was. It was similar, I guess, to that, isn't it? Had a similar thing. There should be a live band. I've got a keyboard in here that I specifically got for music, and can't play it. I mean, I could play it. I can't play it on YouTube. Because I can play it, otherwise it wouldn't be in here. It's a different question. We've got phone lines open. You're welcome to call in. Our people already calling in. Stay on the line. We'll be with you in a moment. You can call in to 855-785-7545 for free anywhere in the continental United States. If you are calling from outside the United States, this is also a free number on Skype. It's free Skype or anything that can call an 800 number inside the United States for free. But Skype will do it with no Skype minutes required whatsoever by dialing +1 855-785-RJ45. That's +1 855-785-7545. It's also on ProfessorMesser.com/live. You can get the phone number from there if it's not on the screen. But we can go to some phone calls already. So let's do that. Let's go to the 661 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name? Caller. Are you there?
Hi.
Oh, there he is. Hey, what's your name? It's a good question. What is my name? What was my name? I've forgotten. We'll stick you back in the queue. Oh, yeah. There's a problem there, isn't there? Now, the question is it my problem or is it your problem? We're about to find out because we're going to the 469 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name? See, I'm hearing myself now. And you could probably turn that down just a little bit. You're listening to me on the phone and not the echo of me on the other side of this. This is why I need a producer who can answer, who can do call screening. But why would we do that? It's much more fun to simply click these things and bring up another phone call. The 586 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Hi, Professor. My name is Joe.
Hey, Joe. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Hi. I just first of all wanted to say thank you for all of your efforts and your information. The last 8 months, I passed the A+ and the NET+.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Again.
Nice job. Congratulations.
Yeah. My question is, I actually secured a job as a help desk technician.
Nice.
With a managed services company. I start on Monday. Just wanted to know what your advice would be.
My advice would be that the moment you walk in, tell them, all of this is done completely wrong. No, that's probably not what you want to do. My advice, because one of my first jobs out of college was effectively in a corporate help desk. There was a little bit, I had one job before that, but I got moved to a corporate help desk. And that's when I realized in this industry, I will never know everything. You will be completely overwhelmed by the amount of information that will be just stuck right on top of your head when you walk in the door. This is a good thing, and it's completely normal in IT. You never know these things until you spend some time with them. But one of the things I always found in IT is my biggest problem was the fear of the unknown. It was walking in and being afraid of that thing that was technical. And I found that the more I volunteered for other projects, or the more I was able to work with other parts of the IT organization, the more I began to learn about all those other things. So don't think that your job is just going to be at a help desk. If there's any opportunity on off hours to help people build out a new training room, to help the network team build out a new networking closet, if there's a new place you can work with the server team to implement some type of new piece of software, you should absolutely take those opportunities, because the help desk is really the starting point where they're going to see how well you do. And I realize that a managed service offering, there may not be as many of those opportunities to get out and do different things than you would have maybe in a corporate environment, but there's still opportunities to do things like that. Take advantage of those. Also, think about what your next step is going to be. You're going to be working on the help desk, and something is going to appeal to you. You may look at this and go, this database stuff's pretty cool. Or the server administration, that's a nice team to work with. Or the network folks, they got something going on. I'd like to learn more about that. Go learn more about that, because there's going to be an opening eventually in their department, and you're going to want to slide right in there and move up. So make sure you think about those things as well. This will also be a good opportunity for you to start networking. So make sure you got a good LinkedIn account. This is the non-technical part of things, is you need to make as many connections as possible. The people that you meet on this job are people you're going to run into in this industry for the rest of your career. And some of these people are going to do amazing things in the industry, and they're going to think about, who could I get to come help work here with me? And they're going to think of your name. So make sure that you keep in touch with these folks. Go to and be part of some of your local user groups, like Microsoft user groups and other security user groups, Cisco user groups, whatever interests you. Go find those too and make the connections and get on people's LinkedIn's and just keep growing. You never know where this stuff's going to lead you. In many ways, you just kind of have to let the river take the boat wherever you happen to be going. But there's plenty of things you can do to put yourself in the right position. And one of those is to at least get in the boat and start heading the right direction. So congratulations on the new job. Sounds very exciting.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks for calling. Take care, Joe.
Bye-bye.
That's exciting, isn't it, to be able to do that? Let's go back to 469 and see if we can pick up 469. Are you there, caller? I hear me. I hear a lot of echo. When you call in, make sure you listen into the earpiece in your phone. And although the stream is about, I'm using a quick stream here, so it's really about a 5 to 10 second delay on the stream. But there's still a bit of a delay. So if you're listening to the delay, you're going to miss me picking up your phone call. 407, let's talk to a Florida call. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Hello.
Hi, caller. What's your name?
Yes, I'm Gardini.
Hey, thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Yes, actually, like you can see, I'm in Florida, and I would like to thank you for your live. I just thought my English is not really fantastic, but I'm trying my best.
I'm following you. So what can we do?
Yeah. This is what I want to do. I want to say, I would like to get my A+ certification, but actually, I don't know where to start. But when I moved to Florida, I went to school for networking support services for a year, and then I completed the program. But now I'm a little bit lost, because I tried one time to take the 901 test, but I failed. So I have to pay. Unfortunately, I didn't have the money. And then I said I need to study a lot. More, try to, get some help, and
Right.
Or maybe to be focused. But I used to watch your labs and then your videos, something like that. But like I said, I don't know how to be, to get ready or to be prepared, to go and then take those exams.
Well, it might be a combination of different things. Now, based on your area code, are you in the Orlando area?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do. Mm-hmm.
Well, you actually are in a pretty good spot then. Now, you have an advantage at least of geography, because in the Orlando area, there is a lot of IT going on. Not just a lot of IT jobs, because there are quite a lot of IT jobs in the Orlando area, but there's a lot of IT-related trade shows. There's just constant activity with IT in the Orlando area. So you're at least have the advantage there that you're in a perfect spot to start learning this content. Now, I tell people all the time, the A+ certification will help you when you go on the job hunt. But there's a lot of people that don't have an A+ certification when they get their first job. And this may be an opportunity to look for an employer who isn't necessarily looking for an A+ certification, but would like to give you the tools and the skills to be able to pass your A+ certification. In fact, there's a number of employers out there and in the Orlando area that would pay for you to take your certification. They would pay for you to get trained and then pay for you to take that certification. There's not all of them do that, but there is a nice group of options available in your area, whether it's a government provider, whether it's a local corporation, and you've got corporations of all kinds there. Everything from, people think of Disney in Orlando, but there are manufacturing facilities, there are publishers there are government contractors, huge government contractors in the Orlando area. They all need good technical people. And this may be your opportunity to learn more about what they might be able to offer. Now, if you don't have that certification, you obviously want to do as much as you can to get that certification. But as I mentioned to the last caller, make sure you know the people in your area. In Orlando, there are tons of user group meetings. A lot of Microsoft user group, very specific Microsoft user group meetings, Cisco user group meetings, and even just generalized technical user group meetings. Take advantage of those. If you want to meet the people who are hiring, they're at those meetings. So if you're having a hard time getting the certifications you need, maybe you go that direction and start meeting as many people as possible. That might give you at least an idea of where you might be able to go to get that first job in technology, because that can be the hardest part. Once you're in, everybody's looking to move up and do what they need in technology. It's getting that first job, really, in any industry, that's the hardest part. So those are at least a couple of ideas that might help. And that may be something that works well for your geography too. I think that's a great place to go.
Yes, I really appreciate it, and thank you for your advice. But like I said, you gave me like couple advice, so I understand everything. But if I want to get like help like from you, or maybe like I said, where do you think, or where you can like suggest me to start and then to go to take the 901 test?
There's a couple of things from a strategy perspective that I tell people all the time. And one is never rely on any one particular study materials. So I like my videos, but don't just use a single set of videos to study on. Get a good book, get good Q&A. It's one of the reasons I wrote my Q&A books, because I didn't like the Q&A that was out there. But there's other options there that you could use. Get a lot of different kinds of study materials, because you'll find that something written in a book you learn in a particular way. Something you watch in a video is reinforced in your brain in a different way, but it's the same content. But you're able to learn it a little better by approaching it from two different perspectives. And then the Q&A is just there to help you to understand, do I know this content well enough to take the exam? Those are the three big ones I always tell people. Make sure you have those three. And the last one, and for A+, pretty important, get as much hands-on as possible. Get your hands on an operating system, work at the command line, go through all of the commands from the course note, or from the exam objectives, and use those exam objectives as your master list. If you can go through that as a checklist and you know everything in the exam objectives, you're going to be good when you walk into the exam.
Okay. All right.
Well, best of luck. You're in a great place to be looking around for these things. So I'm thinking good things for you.
Okay. No problem. Thank you so much. I really appreciate Professor Mesra.
You're very welcome, sir. Thanks for calling. That is a good place. I spent so much time in the Orlando area. A lot of what I did was sales. So I would talk to all kinds of organizations in those areas. I was the systems engineer for a long time. We're going to try 469 again, because I'm a glutton for punishment. Are you there, caller? I love it. That's just not one that's going to work out, is it? Back to Florida, 561 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Yes, hi, Professor Messer. This is Ed calling.
Hey, Ed. Welcome.
Thank you.
What can I do for you?
My question is regarding IPv6.
Oh, my question too. Maybe we can answer it together.
Okay. All right. The question is, how is that going to affect subnetting, NAT and PATS?
Well, it's a valid question. And for most people, it doesn't. First of all, IPv6 and IPv4, from a subnetting perspective, are functionally identical. I mean, if you put them on a piece of paper in binary, it's just a bunch of ones and zeros stuck next to each other. And the idea of subnetting in IPv6 works exactly the same, it's conceptually, as the idea of subnetting in IPv4. There's nothing different about that. You steal some bits from this side and you've got more hosts available. But the reason we did that in IPv4 is because there wasn't enough room to be able to have all of these subnets that we needed with the number of hosts that we needed. There just wasn't enough bits in that address. We had to pick and choose. All right, I need more hosts, so I'm going to have to get rid of some of the networks. Or I need more networks, so I need to make the number of hosts smaller. We had to make these decisions when we were planning IPv4. But in IPv6, there are so many addresses available that subnetting, quite simply, isn't used. Everything is a /64. The first half of the address is the network address. The last half of the address is a list of the hosts that are on that subnet. Now, if you are an ISP, you probably get a /48 address, and then you get to dole out bits off of that to make a /64. And obviously, there's a huge number of networks that you can make by taking a /48 and subnetting it to a /64. But by the time it gets down to you, the end user, or even as a company, here's your list of /64s that you can use. Go at it. And they're just giving you gobs of it because there's so many addresses available. You can just put literally 1 million devices on a subnet, you'd be fine. Of course, you're not going to do that because functionally that doesn't work. But for most of us, and you'll find this in the CompTIA materials, in the Cisco materials, subnetting IPv6, people don't get into it a lot. You don't do a lot of subnetting with IPv6 because you're effectively given a 64-bit address, and there you go. Now, the place where it might help you is when you get into doing any type of supernetting. When you're routing to these IPv6 networks, that becomes different. You may be stealing some subnets there. But for the basic configuration of a workstation, subnetting is kind of a thing of the past when you look at IPv6. Everything is a /64, and you're good to go. Now, you could subnet. You just don't want to. Why make it more complicated than it needs to be?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, that maybe subnetting will become a thing of the past. But also, would there be internal and external IPv6 addressing? In other words, your outward-facing IP versus your local area network IP addresses. Will they be separated also?
There is a concept in IPv6 that is not the same as the public and private addresses that we have with IPv4, but there is a concept in IPv6 that deal with local addresses, meaning your local network, your local subnet, versus IP addresses that are global and are used. And we use that term global as an address that communicates anywhere outside of your subnet, even inside your subnet if you wanted to. But we don't have the same concept as the 10 dot, the 192 dot, 168 networks. Those don't exist in the IPv6 world. There is no concept of an internal private address and an external address that the rest of the world sees. Every IP address is designed so that it is instantly accessible across the internet. And one of the reasons for driving that way was that we were doing a lot of network address translation. You mentioned that earlier. With IPv4, you have this public IP address, you perform network address translation, and it becomes this gob of private IP addresses that you have on the other side of a firewall. We had to do that because there weren't enough IPv4 addresses to go around. But with IPv6, There's addresses for everyone. There's multiple addresses available for everyone and everything that we could ever think of putting on a network. And because of that, the concept of network address translation is unnecessary, because we were only doing it to begin with so that we could use these IP addresses and not run out. And quite honestly, network address translation breaks a lot of stuff. It breaks voice over IP really, really well. It breaks a lot of applications really, really well. So by removing the need for network address translation, a lot of the applications that were having problems in the past no longer have those problems. So no, ideally we would not do any type of network address translation with IPv6. Can you do network address translation with IPv6? You could do network address translation with anything. You're converting one IP address to another. Of course you could. But the concept of IPv6 is one where we don't have to do that anymore. It's not a security function. I just finished a video that I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of bad people sending me bad messages, where I talk about network address translation has nothing to do with security. And yet we've been taught for so many years that NAT means secure. NAT is nothing to deal with security. So a lot of people will say, no, my IPv6 still needs NAT. It doesn't. That's not where your security is. Your security is on your firewall. And there's a big conversation we can have about that one, but I've said too much already, but hopefully that gives you some perspective.
Yeah, that was going to be my follow-up question, is if that did open up some kind of vulnerabilities, having these internal IP addresses publicly facing the internet.
I can tell you that Target had all internal IP addresses with network address translation. Home Depot had internal IP addresses with network address translation. VeriSign, who was the big credit company that just got hit as well? Equifax. You've got and all of the other breaches that you hear about are all companies that have internal IPv4 networks performing network address translation, and yet they're getting hacked. They're getting malware. Devices on the inside that have a local internal 10-dot network are completely compromised. How's that network address translation security thing working for you?
Yeah, it's a very good point.
So that's my perspective on that. And I'm coming from a perspective, to be fair, of someone who was a senior systems engineer for a next generation firewall company for almost 7 years. I went into hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different networks, and we talked about what is doing the security part. Where's the security coming from? And it's really coming from your security devices, from your, in our case, a next generation firewall, but a firewall, an IPS, a content filter, a cloud-based, the ability to search in the cloud for malware, to run it in a sandbox. We have so many different layers of security we use for that. NAT is not one of them.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Messer, and as always, your information is much appreciated.
Thanks for calling, Ed. Take care. That's and I could go on and on. I probably have gone on and on. I'm in the middle of doing of completing production of my Security Plus videos right now for the Security Plus 501. It's the latest Security Plus. And all of the videos have been completed. I'm just in the process of sitting in front of the camera every day and talking to it like I'm doing right now. So I've gone through all these in my mind. How do these work together? It's kind of a long thing. Well, the 317 area code, you've been holding forever. Thank you, caller. What's your name?
I'm Chris. I'm your veteran that has been tuning into your classes for the last few weeks.
Excellent.
Going back to school as a veteran to totally change my career. I'm 46. I've never really been involved in technology, and I feel overwhelmed. And your study groups help a lot towards that end. You know, the question I was going to ask you, Professor, was similar to the gentleman from Orlando. And so I was kind of wondering if with your website, you could maybe post some links to some of those networking meetings that you mentioned where, you know, people come together. Maybe that would be a good resource for all of us that have that same question of where do we start? How can we get that hands-on experience that we need? And then the question that I wanted to ask, I think your website is a very powerful source, not only the information that you give us for free and the information that you sell, but Maybe there's a way that it can be like maybe what do they call it, a splash page, where the community of us that are new in this can kind of share resources of things that we've found, of meetings and training and other opportunities to learn. And then the question I wanted to ask you, because you said that we can ask things that aren't unnecessarily related.
Oh, sure.
I see all these different waves, like of things that I've never worked with technology, but I remember the Y2K and people making money back then, riding that wave of helping people with that. And so I see this wave of cryptocurrency, and I know nothing about it. And so I was kind of wondering if you could address cryptocurrencies, and I'll kind of hang up and listen to your answers.
Sure. And thanks so much for calling. It's one of those where it's hard to know what the next thing is going to be. But first, let me talk about the question you had about how can I find one of these local user group meetings. Fortunately, the user groups themselves are pretty good at getting the word out. One of the places I tend to go and see a lot of them is on meetup.com. I was just about to log into meetup.com on my computer, and it won't let me log in. So, of course, I have to go through a password reset, even though the password is absolutely correct. One of those types of situations. So I'm going to try that. Meetup.com is a great place to go because a lot of these user groups will post what they are planning on meetup.com. So that's the place I would first go. I don't have to put it on my site. I don't have to go through all that process of pointing you somewhere because meetup.com has already done it, and they do it very well. I'm just going to sign up with my Google login, and we'll go to Meetup, meetup.com. Meetup.com is not a dating site. So for those of you, it's not a dating site. That's not what it does. It's one that is organizations letting other people know that they're having a meeting. So Meetup is a great way to do that. Mymeetup.com. Okay, fortunately, I'm having to build a new account on Meetup. So I'm going to jump right to, can I go to next? Do I have to choose things? Of course I do. So whenever you see these groups that are on Meetup, you can very easily search for different things. Now it's already figured out what's in my area, and I can go to Meetup and just search for different things. There's if I look at my site, I'm on Meetup right now. And I can go hiking. I can go line dancing, salsa class. Well, I might be finding things to do on here, but you may be able to look for. I'm going to just look for Microsoft, and none in my area. That makes sense. In my particular area, there's not a huge number of people doing Microsoft, but in Orlando, in all of your major metropolises, you will find a Microsoft user group meeting. You will find a Cisco user group meeting. That's the best place to go. And if you're just trying to find one, you can often find them by typing Microsoft user group, and off it goes. With this, I could probably, the second part of your answer was the next big thing. And there's a lot of next big things going on. Plenty of next big things that are happening. We just finished sort of the virtualization wave is over. We're now in the mode of trying to make the most of that. And the one that you mentioned was really one where I think it was Chris, you said it's this cryptocurrency idea, which has a huge potential for first making money, which I think a lot of people are looking at that as a way to make money as an investment, but it's a unique idea at removing all of the things that prevent us from handing someone a dollar. Do I write a check? Is it done through a third party? What if you got rid of all the third parties? It's a great concept to be able to do that. And we're just now at the point that we're able to make that happen. Is that going to be big? Yeah, that's going to be pretty big. There are a number of both technical and political challenges with getting cryptocurrency to be mainstream. But I always go back, I'll tell this story. Is I was working very early on. One of my first jobs, as I mentioned, was at a help desk, and it was at an insurance company. I've told this story before, so I apologize for those of you that heard it. And there was this new worldwide network that people were connecting to. We were connecting to it over dial-up lines and using it personally as an individual personal account. It was called the internet. Now, there have been networks like this that universities have used for a very long time. And when I was at university, I used these worldwide networks. We connected all our mainframes together. So the concept was one I'm familiar with. But this really changed things. I could simply use my computer, pop open a browser, and be able to connect to NASA and communicate with people in other places and go to other websites. And I thought, this is a neat idea. And we had a big meeting where we had the management of this multi-billion-dollar insurance company, and we explained to them what this internet thing was. And we said, one day, you're going to see these internet addresses everywhere. They're going to be on the side of buses. It's going to be advertising. You're going to see it when you walk through the mall. You're going to see it when you drive down the street. It's going to be in your house. It's going to be everywhere. And they looked at us and said, you guys have lost your minds. This is something the techie people are going to do. This is like your Prodigy dial-up, like your AOL, like that's ever going to go anywhere. This is something that it's never going to be popular, and we're not going to invest in that. But thanks for telling us about this like we would want to know about internet. So that they didn't invest in the internet, and years later they were bought by a third party, and they were gobbled up. That might have been their plan. I don't know, but it showed me that even the people that know everything they should know about what they're doing don't know everything about everything. And there's going to be things you see coming through that are pretty interesting. Cryptocurrency is one of those. I've tried to dive deep into that and figure out there are so many nooks and crannies on cryptocurrency and what is scalable and what is viable. And it's all volatile. There's a lot of atolls associated with cryptocurrency, but it's got legs. You know, if you ask me, it's got legs. This is going to be a thing. It's not going away. There's no bubble. It's not going to bust. I hear people all the time who don't know anything about cryptocurrency tell me everything about cryptocurrency. That it's a pyramid scheme. No, it has nothing to do with pyramids. It actually is pretty unique, pretty interesting. It's going to change the way the world uses money. That's pretty intense. So now we get to see what happens. Is it going to be viable? What are they going to do to make it viable? How does it become mainstream? How does it roll out? Does it roll out with the current form of Bitcoin? Does it really roll out with Bitcoin Cash? Does Ethereum take over? Is Litecoin really the platform? This is the challenge all of us who are watching this are trying to figure out. It's the very beginnings. And like I said back then, wow, this Yahoo thing's amazing. They're going to take over the internet. Don't listen to me. It's kind of the point I'm making there. I thought they had it in the bag. I thought it was legit. Not so much as it turns out. So like the comedian says, don't listen to me. I could be lying about all this. Could be completely wrong about everything. So let's go back to another call. 914. Are you there, caller?
Hi, Professor. This is Daniel. How you doing?
Well, thank you.
Hello?
As I'm having a coughing fit. Thank you for calling, Daniel. What can we do for you?
No worries. Actually, I wanted to say thank you so much. I'm sure you've been giving a lot of thank yous, but I've watched your videos for years now. That's really helped me get to where I am now. I really just wanted to ask you, I have my Security Plus, Network Plus, A Plus, but I'm not here to boast. I really just want to ask, I know that there's at least for me, I struggle to constantly learn what I want to learn. And, when you take the Network Plus, it renews your A Plus. You take a Security Plus, it renews your Network and A Plus.
Yep.
But, I'm a person who doesn't like to put things behind me. I like to stay on top of the game. But, when you're constantly working in the IT world, you have to do that to move ahead. And it's really difficult to say, hey, at least for me, to say, hey, I don't want to go to A Plus and look at Professor Messer because I'm already past that. But there may be certain things that I may be missing that I have forgotten or that I'm overlooking. So, is there a strategy that you may use that might help me in the future to understand where I should look? Because I know that's also it can also is derived from your business needs and whatnot. But there are also things that I just want to know.
This is a common question, though. A lot of people ask me is what do I do next? What is the next thing I should do? And my answer every time is, I don't know. What do you like to do? Everybody has a different path of what they're trying to go. Now, people tell you, well, you need to get your Cisco certification. That's what you do next. That's the next thing. They don't know either. They're trying to tell you things that they've done or things that they've seen that are good. But ultimately, what you do next is going to determine, is really going to be based on what plan do you have. And this is one of the beautiful things about IT, by the way, is that we can set up a plan of what we want to do, and we can actually go get that. You can't do this if you're working on a manufacturing line. You can't do this if you're driving trucks for a living, because that's what you do. That's it. You're at the end of what you're doing. But in IT, you could do almost anything. If you want to get into databases, you can go do that. If you want to manage a team that's building the next big app, you can go do that. If you want to go off on your own and start your own company, you can do that. The technology's out there to do it. The only way you would know what the next step is, though, is if you had already figured out what the much larger picture is. So this may be a good opportunity, and I tell people all the time, take a step back. Figure out what you like. Do you like doing networking? Do you like working with operating systems? Do you like programming your own apps? Do you like databases? Do you like the infrastructure? Do you like the security side of it? Figure out the thing you like, and then go find a job out there that matches with that thing that you like, and then go work towards that job. Yeah, that's what I did with when working in tech and security. Is I found that fascinating. So I said, how can I get to work on that side of things? Well, I need to know a lot about networking. I need to understand the details of the security side of things. I need to understand how these applications like Nmap work. I need to get into the details of all of those. And then I finally found my way over to the security side. It's not something that happens overnight or even in a week or two. It's a much longer path, but you have to have an idea where the path is going so that you can then start figuring out what you do next. And that's going to be, I say that like, oh, we're just having a phone call. See, now it's all done. It's never that easy. And quite honestly, it's never going to be what you decide. I decided back when I had that help desk job what my next thing is going to be. And eventually, here's what I'm going to do. Had no idea. I mean, at the time, there was no internet. Now the world is different. So you're never going to know in IT to be able to look out more than 5 years, because 5 years from now, everything's completely different.
Got it. All right. Well, thank you so much, Professor Messer, for that.
Thanks for calling, Daniel. Good luck.
Thank you. Take care.
That's one where it's such a broad question, but people need a specific answer. But I can't give a specific answer because I don't know what you like to do. There's got to be something you like to do. Go do that thing. 469 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Yeah, my name is Siku.
Thank you for holding for so long. What can we do for you?
Oh yes, this is Siku. I have a question, and then I thank you for for the the videos and the content, and I would appreciate that. I got a new job actually in IT.
Nice.
And yeah, but my question is that I have a question regarding if you have a shared drive and by mistake you actually delete one of it, and then what is the best way to recover it?
Are you saying you deleted what's in the share drive?
Yeah. So you have a shared drive, and you actually deleted one of the item in there. Oh. And then yeah, and then I went to the recycle bin, and it wasn't there. So I'm actually asking you if there's a way to find it without using the software to to recover it.
The real question is, which recycle bin did you go to? Did you go to the recycle bin that was on the machine connecting to the share, or did you go to the recycle bin on the computer that was hosting the file?
Yeah, I went to the one on the computer, the one that is on the computer.
So in most cases, the files that are deleted will be saved in the recycle bin of the computer from which they were deleted. For instance, if you were on a share and you deleted a file, it's not going to transfer the whole file down to your computer and then store it in your recycle bin. It's going to store it into the recycle bin on the server side, on the other side that's actually hosting the share. So that may be one place to look. But like anything else, it's all about backups. You have to have a good set of backups there, and that's why a lot of people they love the cloud-based systems so much because of that. Everything has backups automatically associated with it. We don't quite have that luxury in most of our operating systems, but we do have the luxury of the recycle bin. So that may be the place to look.
Yeah, thank you. I think that would absolutely help me on that. Yeah, thank you so much. And also, I have a question. I already have my A plus, and I'm working on my security, but I'm actually trying to go for programming. So, what would be the best advice you would give me on that end?
Well, that's broad. That's a very large scale. In fact, we're seeing more of an integration now between the development side and the operation side with more of a SecOps type configuration. But what you run into is it at least from a instructional perspective, learning programming, it's a very different world, and we're still keeping them relatively separated out here in the rest of what we're doing. I just got an email though from something I was doing. Let me see if I can find in the piece that I had, because I went through some online programming classes that I thought were pretty good. And there's a lot of options for this, for doing online development, because there's so many different options. You've got development that you could do in C. You've got development you could do for mobile devices. There's Java development, also very focused on mobile devices these days. There's so much different places to go that you almost have to do your own research about what type of programming you want to go into and then focus on that computer science side. There's not a lot of overlap out there for the operational side of IT and the computer science side of IT. They're really kept very separated as far as training out there right now. So you may just have to focus on what can I find from a computer science perspective and go with that.
Okay, thank you. You always appreciate it. I really appreciate your submission.
Welcome, sir. Take care. That's one of the challenges, though. And it's kind of why we still see a separation in the computer science programming and the rest of IT, effectively. That's how those are there. Let's back to the calls. We've got a lot of calls today. 414 area code. Are you there? What's your name?
Hey, I am. It's Tim. How's it going?
Hey, Tim. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Well, getting started in the IT field is really difficult. I actually ended up getting in at Amazon using a lot of stuff I learned from your 902 videos.
Nice.
I'm actually the highest ticket closer in the world for Amazon.
Nice.
So I really appreciate all the extra insight that you give. Yeah. And I understand, quality is more important than quantity, but as far as the easy and simple stuff, I definitely get a lot done.
That's the key.
So, what I wanted to ask you though is, I get a lot of help from a lot of friends that have a lot more experience than me in IT. A lot of them are coming over from foreign countries, and they actually brought a lot of experience with them. And, I want to return the favor for all the help that they've given me. And a lot of them are coming from India, Nigeria, places like that. And, one thing they have a lot of trouble with is language barriers and, getting jobs because of that. And I was wondering if you have some, advice that I could maybe pass on to others that are moving into new markets and unfamiliar, with the people, or maybe some things that I can tell them to help overcome that.
It is a little bit more of a challenge when you get into language, because it's not something where you can necessarily watch a static video and grab onto all of the nuances needed. And I'm not someone who's in the language area, but I did run across a website, this was a few years ago, where you set up and configure real-time one-on-one language lessons. I thought that was a pretty unique idea because it's real time. You're with someone who is an expert in those particular languages, and they could effectively translate and provide some perspective. I thought that was a brilliant idea. I run into the same thing coming from Silicon Valley companies. We have a similar situation where there's a lot of people now coming into the United States to do this type of work, but their knowledge of English creates a bit of a barrier when you're trying to describe the way you want to build an application, and there has to be some type of middleman to translate down to these things, and sometimes things are, as they say, lost in translation. It quite simply is. That's I haven't seen anybody address that directly. That maybe this is an opportunity for you to be able to put together something and solve a problem that nobody else has solved yet.
Yeah, that would be nice because, I know a lot of these guys are a lot more qualified than me. I got guys at school that are A+ and NET+ certified, and they're having trouble getting a job. That's just, I can't believe it,
It's one of the biggest challenges we have in the industry is getting the right people in the right positions. We know they're out there, but how do you find them? And if they don't speak the language, that's even worse of a problem. I think it's a brilliant idea. I'll leave it up to kind of the people watching this on the replay and in the chat room. If you got some suggestions, we would love to hear them. Put them in the comments for the video or send them to me with the Contact Us link on the Professor Messer website, and I'll talk about it in the next study group.
Yeah, I'll do that because one thing I do is I might get bored, studying A+ over and over again. So what I'll do is I'll start watching some of your NET+ and Security+ videos, and I'll learn a lot of stuff that'll help me with A+.
It does.
And it'll also make the A+ look a lot easier for me too.
That's a great idea. I tell people, I try to put into the videos, and I tell people I put in just enough for you to know what's going to be asked on the exam. But each one of those topics in A+, I could spend a day talking about connectors, but nobody wants to sit through me talking about connectors for a day. So I focus in on, here's just what you need to know. But if you can spend time with them, look at them, plug them in yourself, read about them in another book, find more content, fill out all of the holes, it's going to help you when you finally sit down for the exam.
Yeah. And it's key to really know on the exams how to troubleshoot and implement it. They're not going to ask you a lot of questions just like, which processor is compatible A, B, C, D.
Right.
It's going to be a lot of scenario-based questions, so keep that in mind. But yeah, I appreciate everything you do for us. Your videos are amazing and very helpful.
That's great. Best of luck, Tim. Thanks for the call.
Thanks a lot, Professor. Bye.
Bye-bye. You are quite welcome. Glad they could be of help. That's why they're out there. Let's do the 661 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name? Hi, caller. I can hear you. Are you there? Are you there, caller? Let's listen in. What is the caller doing? Walking around, chewing gum. Chewing gum? Is that what Back to the queue. You've been holding for so long. I am not going to drop you. We'll come right back to you, caller. And we'll go to the 717 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. I am 13 years old and homeschooled.
Excellent.
And I've been working on my A+.
Nice.
And I love your videos. They are very instructive. And I was just wondering, what are the best study guides and practice simulations and,
You're right, because the videos only go so far, and the book only goes so far.
Yeah.
And nobody knows better than you than practical experience is the one that really helps with learning. And it's the same thing on the A+. If you can get as much hands-on as possible, it's going to help you. If you have an old computer, if somebody has an old computer that's broken, even better, one you can really take the screws out of, pull it apart, look at the motherboard, put things in and out, see how the memory goes in. That's going to help expand your idea of what this memory is doing when it's connected to the computer. If you're able to get in front of an operating system and connect to, I showed the labs earlier, but you could even build your own labs and be able to run Microsoft VISTA, Microsoft Windows 7, Microsoft Windows 8 and 8.1. having more hands-on with those operating systems is going to help you on the exam as well. This might be a good time, in fact, to bring up modern.ie, modern.ie, stands Internet Explorer at the end. Modern.ie is a Microsoft website they've designed for developers, but they have on this website under their tools menu a set of virtual machines that you could download that have Windows 7, Windows 8.1, and Windows 10 on there. You can download these and run them in a virtual environment on your computer without having to touch anything else that's on your PC. And it doesn't matter what operating system you're running either.
Run them?
Yeah, they're full-blown operating systems. So you can load up VirtualBox, for example, is free. And you can download the VirtualBox version of Windows 8.1. You click a button, and suddenly 8.1 is running in a window on your existing desktop. You could be running Mac OS, and you've got Windows 8.1 running in that window. That's the beauty of virtualization.
Oh, very good.
And they've got the entire operating system there for you to use. The terms of the use are that you don't use it for production use. So you can't download this and use it as your Windows 7 desktop or your Windows 8.1 desktop or your Windows 10 desktop. It's used for development work and non-production work like studying for your certification exam. And it's just all out there ready for you to download. That's another great place. If you're looking for hands-on, that's a great place to get it from.
Great. Well, I built my own PC, and
nice.
I'm really liking that. And how about networking? You know, the OSI model. What do you need to know for that?
Networking is a little bit more of a challenge because you're dealing with switches and routers and protocols going back and forth, and not many people have a bunch of switches and routers that they can connect up in their house to be able to do that. Although it's a little bit out of scope for the Network Plus, you don't really have to set up a network to be able to pass your Network Plus certification. But if you go beyond that, or you just want to fill in the gaps, because that's really what a lot of people are trying to do, then you may want to consider getting Cisco's Packet Tracer. Cisco's Packet Tracer it focuses clearly on Cisco equipment. So you do have to have, it's a little bit of a ramp to get started, but there's a lot of videos that show you how to get started with this. But it effectively gives you a blank screen, and you can add a bunch of routers and switches to it and then send traffic back and forth over this network and watch it happen. It's a sandbox for networking, and it works exceptionally well for a training perspective. So that's just go to Google and look for Packet Tracer. Now, I got to tell you now, you got to know some Cisco to be able to get this thing to run really well, but it's quite honestly not that hard to learn the Cisco part enough to get this running that way. And there's a lot of graphical front ends. People think a lot of times Cisco means I need to do a lot of stuff at the command line, but there's a lot of stuff you can do a Packet Tracer that's in a graphical interface. So you can effectively add a router, add a switch, add the IP addressing, and tell it to go all from a graphical front end without having to know any of the Cisco command line stuff. So if you ever wanted to stretch your knowledge of networking, that will stretch your knowledge pretty well. Go out to the Google machine, just look for Packet Tracer from Cisco, and it will take you to it's free to download. It used to be this was not something that Cisco made available to the public. You'd have to take a Cisco class to have Packet Tracer. Last year, they opened it up so that everybody can download Packet Tracer and use it. And it's a great little utility. It's very flexible, and you will learn a lot if you start to load that up and do a lot of networking with it.
Sweet. I just have one more question for you.
Sure.
If you don't mind. If, the whole 901, what is the most important concept, if you will, to just, sit down and know?
There is not one. There are a lot. And that's because the exam itself is so broad. If you have not downloaded the exam objectives yet, that will answer your question. And what you'll find is that there are hundreds of topics spread across many different domains. But one of the things that you will get from the exam objectives is it tells you how much of the exam could possibly come from any one of those large sections. So if on your exam, for example, the type of CPUs, a lot of people spend a lot of time memorizing CPU information, but the CPUs are a single section out of a much larger domain that might even have 10 or 12 different sections in that domain. And it's one domain out of 5 on the exam. That means you might get a question on CPUs. Does it make sense now then to study 5 days on CPUs? No, because you might get one question. You might get 2. You might get 0. Yeah. So that's where you would go to figure out what percentage of the exam is going to be hit me with this information and how much should I really study in all of these topics. That will give you the perspective of where you need to go.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your time.
You're very welcome. Good luck with that.
Thank you very much. Bye.
That's fantastic. I love it. Already built his own computer. I'm going to build a computer after Christmas because I got Christmas stuff for computers. It's really good. Can't talk about it yet. Afterwards. Do it later. Let's go to another phone call. 316 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Professor, hi. This is David.
Hello, David. What can we do for you?
Yeah. Hi. I am working on my 901 objectives right now.
Okay.
And I initially started working on Network Plus about a year ago. Incidentally, I don't have a whole lot of experience in the IT field, but wanting to get in, I started with Network Plus at the advice of a close friend who's in the industry. And I found out quickly that Network Plus was just way, way over my head.
Yeah, that's a heck of a place to start.
Yeah, he suggested I go for the meet and just go that way, but finding out pretty quickly that I was in over my head, I decided to backtrack and go with A+, and 6 months into it, I don't know if I'm just attacking this the wrong way, but I'm, following your videos. I'm reading a textbook and practically rewriting the textbook in my own notebook, and I might be able to pass a practice exam with about 60, 70% correct. And I don't know if there's just another way I need to approach things, because maybe I'm setting the bar too high for myself, but I just feel like I'm in over my head here.
How much hands-on are you getting?
I'm spending a little time hands-on with my own laptop. I was actually able to diagnose, a little hard drive problem on my own just off of one of your videos a couple days ago.
See, some of this is sinking in.
Okay. But I don't know if I'm just setting the bar too high for myself, but of course I'm trying to do this on a budget because, well, I don't have a whole lot of money to work with and my time is limited. And I'm kind of thinking about maybe taking one of these boot camp classes at my local community college. But do you have any advice on how to, maybe approach this, a smarter way instead of
It's difficult to do when you don't have anything that can give you constant reinforcement. If someone's working in a job now where they are they're in transportation, then there's not a lot of IT associated with it. You pretty much are learning whatever you can grab out of the book. But even the book and videos still need a little bit of hands-on to be able to look at these cables, touch the cables, see how they're configured, look at how they plug into the back of the computer. Those things can help too with the things that are in the 901 and 902 exams. And especially in the 902, you're spending a lot of time with operating systems. And that's why I mentioned things like modern.ie, the website I mentioned earlier, where you can download Windows 8. And if you're running Windows 7, Windows 8's a whole new world of things. So it's helpful to download it and then be able to work with that operating system, become more familiar with it. But a lot of these, normally I would tell people, don't really spend time on these boot camps that are quickly going to run you through this content. However, you've already done a lot of the prep that would help you do well in a boot camp environment. And if it's something being done at the local community college, I would bet it's probably a little more economical than a private company doing something like that. And the community colleges, people don't realize, are such a great place to get this type of content. They offer so many classes and they're really relatively very good price.
their program is a few $100s versus a couple $1,000s at one of the private schools.
They're giving it away.
And and they also have the Network Plus and Security Plus, for the same price. We're talking $400 a piece. And I just can't help but wonder if that's maybe some well-spent money on my part.
The investment there is going to be whatever you put into it. You've got the advantage of walking in the door with already a foundation of knowledge. So when somebody talks to you about a bus and how the memory talks to the CPU, you're like, oh yeah, already got some background on that one. I can follow along with what you're saying. A lot of the boot camp, a lot of the stuff falls on the floor. But for you, you've already got a lot of that. It's going to go in your brain. So that helps a lot. The other advantage you have is that other people in the room are also going to be going through this training. It gives you an opportunity, and you have to do, this is something learned, I've found, is that if you don't recognize or understand something, you have to tell people in the room. You have to be brave enough to put your hand up and say, I have no idea what you just said. And that is the one thing in my career that changed everything for me. My last corporate job was as a senior systems engineer with an extremely popular startup in the security market. We would go to training and they would put something on the board and I'd say, I have no idea what you're talking about. And other people in the room said, I'm really glad you said that because I had no idea what he was talking about either. But we were the experts in the field. They picked us because we really knew this stuff really well, but you can't know everything. And if somebody can go through it again, okay, got it. Now I understand what you're saying. Sometimes that's the one skill you need that changes everything.
Okay.
So you got all the tools. You've got all the things that you can use to make this work. Now the point is, how do you put them all together? And maybe that group at the community college is the one to do it. That may be the hook that changes everything.
Well, I mean, when I saw what these other companies were charging, $2,500, for the same class versus $450, and it's a reputable school that's been around, that's been in town for years.
Right.
I just have to wonder if maybe I need to give them, some more thought.
I went to college and got my AA degree at a community college. It is sort of people don't think about it. They don't understand what a valuable resource that is. They've got the tools, they've got the computer equipment, they've got the instructors, you've got everybody else there who's trying to learn the same thing that you can also ping to figure out things you don't know. I think that's a great idea.
Okay. All right. Well, once again, I know you hear this all the time, but I want to thank you for all the work you do putting this material out there, and you provide the notes at a very reasonable cost, and it's much appreciated, not only by me but by other people too. And when I mention your name to other people, and as some of the resources I'm using, they all light up and say that Messer is the best out there.
That's very kind of you. Thank you.
Really, thank you very much.
You're very welcome, sir. I wish you the best. Let us know how it goes.
I will. Thank you very much. Have a great one.
Thank you. You too. Let's see if my voice holds out for another few calls. We're into the third hour, so let's see how we do with the 240 area code. Are you there, caller?
I am. Hi, Professor Messer. How are you doing?
I'm good. What's your name?
I am Aaron. Just to give a little bit of background, I started out at my sort of magnet high school.
Nice.
It was a technical high school.
Good.
And they allowed students to take the A+ exam and the Cisco ICND1 exam through a voucher.
Wow.
Which was really good experience.
Yeah.
To get. And I wasn't able to get my A+, but surprisingly, I was able to get my ICND1 certification.
Go figure. Okay.
Yeah.
An incredibly complex exam.
Right. And I was surprised. I didn't think I was going to get either initially, but just being able to have the opportunity was great. And now, like the previous caller, I am at a community college studying cybersecurity.
Nice.
I've been really interested in the security field, but when I was at my high school, I really enjoyed networking, and I guess it showed being able to get that cert, which was great.
Right.
But now I'm sort of at a crossroads because I'm graduating at the end of the semester, and I also have a job offer sort of at a help desk position that I interned at last summer, which was a great experience. And I'm sort of wondering, because yesterday I was at the interview, and they said potentially that if I do go on for my bachelor's, that it would just sort of sit on the shelf, but that it may not present much benefit to me, at least at this company. So I'm not sure if I should continue looking into more education. Obviously, I'm going to continue more for my certs as well, but education-wise versus getting a job now. And I was just wondering if you had any advice on where I should sort of what basket I should put all of my eggs into.
Oh, that's a tough one. Well, first let's talk about you're interested in security, and I was so pleased to also hear you say, but I really like networking. As someone who has been heavy duty into networking and heavy duty into IT security, I can tell you that security is a huge foundation of networking with a bunch of security stuff laid on top of it. So the better you are with networking, the better you're going to be on the security side, because these security components plug into all of these different parts of the network. You're dealing with VPN connectivity, site to site, user coming inside. The more operating system knowledge you have, the better it's going to be. Being able to put multiple security devices on the network in a redundant form that won't break the configuration that's already there. It's almost a pure network question, and you're sticking a firewall in the middle. So you're really in a good place there. You're really in a fantastic position if you know networking and you want to get into the security side. I tell people all the time, how do I get started in security? I tell them, get started in networking, because that's what's going to give you the biggest boost once you get there. The other piece is a little more controversial, which is how valuable is a formal education? And when I say formal education, I mean a 4-year degree. Bachelor of Science in something. And it doesn't necessarily, for IT, it doesn't have to be in the field you're going into. My degree is business management. I used very little management in my IT career, but your prospective employer isn't necessarily that wrong. I have worked with people in IT who had millions of dollars in the bank and had no college degree, because the computer doesn't know what you know. The computer only knows what you tell it. And so a lot of the skills in IT, and I mean real skills, like the things you learned in your Cisco networking class, and enabled you to get your ICND 1 and earn your CCNT certification, it's really, really, really difficult to find a 4-year program that teaches you any of that stuff. And yet the things you learned there are, as you found in the interning you did, that's what people need to know when they sit down at a help desk. And that's what they need to know when they're in the networking department. That's what they need to know when they want to go into security. The universities are slow machines. They don't move very quickly. And they think that for you to be a business major, you need to understand calculus. For you to be a computer person, to a university, computer means that you have a computer science degree, that you've learned how to program, except only a relatively small section of IT has anything to do with programming. The vast majority of IT is everything but programming. So that's the problem that we run into with these formal degrees. And it's probably the thing that your prospective employer is seeing, is that they're not teaching you what we need you to know. What you need to know, you're going to learn by sitting here in this chair, and we will show you and train you on all of these other things. And the internet is available for you to learn everything else. They're not wrong. The problem comes later on when you want to go to a different organization that does put value on a 4-year degree. And they say, well, we might hire you for this, but don't ever think you're going to get into management, because we only put people in management who have formal degrees from a 4-year corporation. four-year university in our corporation. And
Right. So
I
there's
get that.
potential for a disconnect there.
There's a little disconnect. Now, the reality is kind of blended between the two. Would a four-year degree help you in IT? It would help you in ways that weren't necessarily related to IT. My management degree taught me a lot about how people are hired and people are not hired in organizations. Taught me a lot about the accounting side of things, the financial side of things. So when people showed up and said, we need to set up our IT budget for the year, I at least understood what they were talking about with their nomenclature. I understood that they were talking about capital budgets versus expenses that they had throughout the year. I got it. Pardon me. So there is value in a four-year degree. It's just very difficult to draw the line between four-year degree and being able to do something technical in IT. In a lot of organizations, a lot of universities, you can't draw the line. There's just no line to draw. The line goes somewhere else. And your prospective employer, seen that as well. Just think of a four-year degree as more of, in some cases, it's a piece of paper you can show somebody you did it. In other cases, now that it's been a number of years, I can think back and say, yeah, I actually did learn some things there. It took me a while to make use of them, but it's a little bit different. We haven't hit the point in our country that these technical skills, which traditionally have been taught at a technical school, but nobody's yet been able to really put together that IT has that same need for technical knowledge that a technical school provides, but we're not providing it in the same type of form. And it turns out very few people are actually teaching it. So I get it. I didn't really answer your question. I'm really talking around it because there's no real answer. There's advantages for getting your four-year degree. There's a lot of nonsense and ridiculousness for getting a four-year degree. And I've seen both sides of it. So it's one of these situations. And I look back at the gentleman I knew who was a millionaire without being a college graduate and thought he was a self-made man. He knew what he wanted and he went and got it. And he was already a smart guy. You don't learn intelligence at college. You're either smart or you're not smart. The smart people are the ones that take what they know and they do the best with it. A smart person isn't somebody who knows everything. It's somebody who knows these things and knows how to make the best of what they have. So that's my recommendation to you. Find the thing that makes the most sense for you. Follow the path wherever it takes you, and just be ready for anything.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate that. Just another side thing. I heard with the previous caller, you're talking about Cisco Packet Tracer. That was actually something that was really helpful and really instrumental in me taking that ICMD 1. I went through the 2 levels of the Cisco course that they had online that I guess it sort of gave access to Packet Tracer.
Yep.
That went really well. And now, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're absolutely right. Packet Tracer is a great utility. And if you're going through the ICND, the Cisco certification, you have to use it. It's fantastic.
Right. And now I'm also at community college and sort of at this crossroads, but I agree a lot with what you said. And I'm looking at the colleges sort of provided these different pathways to go down, and I've been majoring in cyber, but I've really been interested in networking, and I'm also trying to go for my Cloud Plus cert, which I've seen now being able to dabble a bit in the different branches of IT, that a lot of them cover the same base material, and then go and specialize in really the technical side of things, like for cloud, the different types of infrastructure, or for networking, the different protocols that occur. But I would recommend cloud, at least right now, education-wise, has a lot of just base information, and at least the certification, the preparation that I've been doing, it doesn't go too in-depth. It's not as difficult to grasp, I would say, as a networking certification, and I'm looking forward to hopefully passing that and getting my cert this Thursday, tomorrow, actually.
I would agree with that. And as someone who was in the networking side, I did a lot of networking early on in my career. I started more in operating systems, and then I moved over into networking. And I tell people all the time, networking, I think, is the one set of skills that allows you to do anything else in IT. I don't know any other part of IT that really gives you that same flexibility. Because if you know networking, you can drive it into security. If you know networking, it fits well into the cloud. If you know networking, it helps you manage a large-scale implementation of servers. If you know networking, you can build a database farm very easily by applying what you know. It's the jumping off point for everything else. And the better you are with networking, I think the better you are with everything else.
All right. Well, I think that about covers it. Thank you
Aaron.
for everything that you've been able to put out. I really appreciate you taking my call. And, yeah, thanks again.
You're welcome, sir. Best of luck.
Thank you.
We've got more calls. I think we'll just keep going until I can't talk anymore. 651 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name? Oh, he's heard. No, that's me. It could be me. Are you there, caller? Caller? We've been holding a while, so I'm going to stick you back in the queue, and we'll go back to the 909 area code. Are you there, caller?
Yes, sir.
Hey,
my
what's
name
your
is
name?
Alan Williams.
Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Hey, I just want to thank you for everything you've been putting out, especially for free for us budgeting students. It means everything, seriously.
You're welcome, sir. Happy to do it. Glad it's working out.
Thank you, sir. I started out in programming. I'm in college now. Found out I'm not going to be able to pass calculus, so there's no way I'm going to be getting a programming degree. There is no way I could pass calculus. So
I took it twice.
Yeah, no, I'm no math whiz in any way, shape, or form. So I'm going into system administration.
Nice.
And networking.
Yep.
And I'm studying for my A+ right now. I'm going to do that first before I get my Network Plus. I hope the caller from 2 callers ago is still listening. I would like to tell him what I did for hands-on. I went to a IT thrift store and got a old computer for about $30.
Nice.
And got my hands on that way. So if he's still listening, check that out. Because I'm on a budget too. I definitely understand.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, they're old, but I mean, it's all the hands-on you need.
Yep, that is absolutely correct. They haven't changed that much.
Right. I'm also at a community college, and I think they don't get enough credit, as you said before. My professor is the IBM IT director for North and South America, so there's knowledge at these community colleges.
That's great. And you're right. I've seen, by the way, I just see this over and over again, that I think that's the place that has it's the secret sauce right now. And I think you're seeing it too.
Oh, definitely. And he's the one that turned me on to your videos. You're a part of our homework.
Oh, sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. Yeah, watching your videos is part of our homework. So, I mean, you're doing the right thing.
That's great.
We're loving it. I have your course notes for A+ and networking.
Yeah.
And I've been studying. I'm having a hard time grasping the printer side of the exam.
Right. This is not an unusual statement.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, because I work with computers often, but printers, that goes over my head sometimes. Do you have any advice on how to study for that maybe more effectively?
I think the reason it's such a problem for most of us, and I say of us because printers are a problem for everybody, is that one, we don't have a lot of these kinds of printers anywhere we can work on them directly. It's not like a lot of people have in their house a laser printer, an inkjet printer, a dot matrix printer, and a thermal printer. They just don't have them. That's a lot of different printing technologies for someone to have in one place. And on top of that, every printer has a different way of working. The A laser printer underneath the hood has the same basic function, but every laser printer has its own way of doing things, its own set of buttons, its own method and operating system on the way it works, its own way of communicating across the network. And for some reason, they never, ever seem to work. And so that's the problem that we all have. For the A+ exam, at least it's a very broad perspective on printing. There's not a lot of details about printing that are on there other than here's the way these devices generally work. It's another one of those cases where the more hands-on you can get, the better, but it's kind of hard to get hands-on printing. You just have to kind of find a printer out there, learn as much as you can about it, and then extrapolate from there when you get to other printers that are similar.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. I got it.
So there's just,
thank you for that.
Just charge through it and do the best you can on the printing side. Fortunately, printing used to be its own domain on the A+. Now it's just a couple of sections in the first domain. So if anything, you're a little bit luckier now.
Okay.
For whatever that's
My
worth.
next question was advice for a student that just wants to get into the industry. My resumes get rejected a lot because I don't have any experience.
Right.
So any advice on breaking into the industry?
Yeah, you have to have a certain set of things on your resume when you walk in the door. One of them would be some experience, but obviously if you don't have a job, that's a section of your resume that's just going to be empty. There are things you can do along those lines, and some of it deals with volunteer work. Some of it deals with finding an organization that needs somebody to work part-time. There may be things you can do along that line. It's more difficult to do when you're a student to get that type of experience. But you also need formal education, which you're already working on. So you're going to have something to put on the resume from a formal education perspective. Certifications certainly help. They're different than a formal education, but and they added something else to the resume that's worth putting up front. Don't put those on the back page. Put those up front. People need to see them first thing. The last one is sort of is more ethereal. It's something that's not as tangible as you might think, but it's so important on a resume, not really on the resume, but with the resume, is that you have to have connections in the industry. And that's hard to do when you're a student. But first, there's students that you've worked with that are in the industry. But there's also connections you can make outside the classroom. And we spoke earlier in the study group about Meetup and finding user groups. Find those people. The user groups are managing server farms. They're managing data centers. They're managing network teams. They're managing security professionals. And they're at these meetings to learn more about the Windows operating system, what's next in Cisco. They're out to learn as well. And it's a great opportunity, and you have to be forward at these things to walk up to people and say, hi, my name is, and I'm a student and blah, blah, blah. Who do you work with? And ask them the questions. And say, if I wanted to get a job in your organization, what type of people you're hiring? What do those people need to know? And you get to know those people at those meetings. You'll see them next time, and you get to say hello, and you get on their LinkedIn. And the goal is that eventually when you go into these interviews and you can say, oh, I know Bob, we met at the Microsoft user group meeting. And we talk all the time about your data center that you opened up in wherever they opened it up. So it's an opportunity for people to hire someone they know. I have had in the industry, I say I've had 15 jobs. It's probably well less than that. It's probably 12. I've had more than two hands worth of jobs in this industry where I've gotten hired and did the paperwork and worked there for a while. And most of it's because in the IT industry, I worked in the Valley during the very busy times where companies were getting bought and sold all the time. And it was just chaotic. But one of the things that I always fall back on is the first job I got in IT, I didn't know anybody there. And every other job that I ever got in IT after that, I knew somebody who was working at that company. The population of people doing this is not that large. And the people in your area, it's a small group of people, relatively speaking. So the more people you know, the better off you're going to be in this job hunt, not just today, but all the way through your IT career.
Yes, sir. Wow. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
That's good luck with that. Let us know how it goes.
Man, thank you so much, and thank you for everything you're doing for us, and just giving us a bit of your knowledge. We really appreciate it, all of us.
Good luck, sir. Good luck with that homework. Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem.
Take care.
You have a good one.
Bye-bye. We got more here. We got more to talk about. Let's see if that, no, they're not in the queue. The person I had in the queue before, not there anymore. So sorry. They held so long. I'm so sorry. Sorry. 717 area code. Are you there, caller?
Hey.
Hey, what's your name?
Hey, my name is Angel. I'm from Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Welcome. What can we do for you?
Well, to be honest, so I've been running kind of a little buy and sell computer business.
Nice.
But it's more like of a hobby for the most part.
Okay.
But to be honest, it's very lucrative and I love it.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, no, it is. And I actually got into it when I was about like 15. Literally started trading on Craigslist, and then eventually I discovered, hey, there's a market for literally buying a $50 laptop with a broken hard drive and flipping it for $200.
Yep, there you go.
It's incredibly lucrative. Now, my question, and the reason I'm calling, also first and foremost, thank you for all the lessons. Honestly, free education is never a negative thing. But I more so want to know, what would you recommend to get? Now, I did hear the first, I don't know if it was the first caller, but when I joined, you brought up networking. That is actually probably my weak link, my Achilles heel, so to speak. So is that what you would recommend for someone wanting to get into the field learning? Because from what you made it seem like it was basically a make or break for employers.
I wouldn't know if networking is make or break, but it gives you so many more options. And this is obviously speaking as someone who got into the IT field at more of a help desk level, moved into operating systems and tried to learn as much as I could about Windows. And I hopped from the networking, and that's where everything started to happen. And we just lost power. How do you, and I don't know if you're still with me, caller, because we have lost everything. Usually the internet connection loses power at the same time. So power's back, but I would bet that my local pop that handles this has gone down, and it has. Are you there with me, caller, anymore? You're not.
I am still here.
Okay, good. So at least we got that. There's a local recording. We can still follow from that. One of the things that, and we probably kept the internet, so it's even bad too, although the stream is in bad shape right now. And I will, as someone who has been in sort of the networking side of things, is it really gave me a lot of options. And that's the reason I mention it. But you've got the same kind of capabilities if you go in deep into operating systems. There's a similar set of values that you can get from that. It's the same thing if you dive into databases, you know databases really well. There's a bunch of things you can do there as well. They are going to help you out when you get to the point where you're trying to find that next job. I tell people in IT, because we kind of have the luxury to do this, that you should find a job that is something you enjoy, because that leads you into the next thing. And I think you've probably seen this when you're working with this, the hardware that you work with, and getting a laptop and fixing it up and then selling it. There's an advantage there to doing that. Maybe your next step is one where you're going to move into servers. Maybe you're managing data centers because there's so much hardware associated with the data center. Maybe it leads you into operating systems because now that you've been working so much with the hardware, you've now got more into the operating systems. Maybe you're loading up more systems with Linux because you're getting these broken systems and you don't want to pay for Windows licenses. It's much easier to sell as a browsing tool. And now you become very knowledgeable in Linux, and a lot of companies like the Linux piece. So I say networking because it was very valuable to me, but it doesn't have to be that way. The important thing is you find that thing you're interested in and you just do a deep dive. Don't think that you need to know everything about everything in technology. Nobody does. What you need to know is find that niche that nobody else is spending time on and go dive into it. Because the more you know about something that nobody else does, the more valuable you're going to be.
Okay. So if I was to get, because it's ironic that you said I actually just bought a pallet of actually some rather expensive servers and some kind of like off servers that aren't worth a whole lot, and I've been thinking about tinkering with them. And you mentioned servers and working on those. If I was to go that route, what do you recommend starting out in?
Anything dealing with hardware, it's difficult these days because there's not one set of hardware certifications. In fact, once you get past kind of server plus, nothing else is really hardware related. And I think that's probably a good reason for that, because the hardware is relatively static. It builds into a system like this, and you've got everything you need to run. And a lot of companies don't build their own computer systems. They buy them already created from the manufacturer. They show up, they've got a machine that's already spec'd out. And these days, of course, everything's virtualized. They just build systems magically in the cloud, and they've got everything they need. So that's one of the challenges you run into, is that there are certain types of topics that have a limited scope and maybe pieces of hardware related to that. Whereas something like networking is extremely broad, and it can go in so many different directions: wide area network and virtual private networking and ISPs and data center networking and secure network configurations and virtual networking. It just keeps going and going. So that's one of the things you'll find, is that certain technologies take you so far, but then you're going to have to make the jump to something else.
Okay, so I've actually been thinking about, again, it's ironic that you brought up servers. I was thinking about going to like local shops and seeing what their security is, for instance, like coffee shops. Where I am, literally, they've been popping up like no other, and I know that they're not as secure, or at least I would assume they're not as secure as they may think. So network security was something I was kind of thinking about dabbling in as well. So then when you bring up servers, possibly a combination of two as far as setting up a server as well as their cybersecurity. What are your thoughts behind that?
I would recommend, if you have not already, listen to the archive, not just the latest shows, but the archive of the Mike Tech Show. Have you ever heard of the Mike Tech Show?
No, I have not.
Here's a guy. He is has his own company that manages the systems and networks for small businesses in his area. It is a beautiful niche, by the way, and it's one he's found very, very much success. But a lot of the things he runs into are very unique to small businesses. It seems to be a section of IT and management of IT that's lost, because small companies can't afford an IT person, and they have to have people come in from outside, but you never know exactly who you're getting in to handle technology at a small company. And he takes you through what he did this week and the problems he ran into and how he solved them. And if you've ever tried to figure out how can I expand on this thing I've got going? I've got this company where I'm flipping these laptops. How could I concentrically diversify into small business management or making sure places have the systems they need? He takes you through everything. Here's the type of servers they need. Here's the type of backups you should be using. Here's the type of troubleshooting tools I use. He just lays it out. I learned so much just by listening in on what he's doing every week, because he's always got an interesting spin on something he's run into. That's a great place to go. And if you're trying to do some intel, don't miss the Mike Tech Show at mikenation.net.
Wow, that's all, and that's what if there's one thing I've noticed, I've worked with business, and I actually started going to school for computers and business, and I actually dropped out because I even took an entrepreneurial class, and it did nothing for me. Oh. I was there and I was helping. I'm not even going to say helping. I was giving, so to speak, my own spin on starting up a small business. Everything I was learning wasn't really even entrepreneurial related. It was all stuff on how to work for another corporation. And somehow, and I don't even know how that happened. So I was answering questions because, I mean, I make a decent amount. I still work full-time just because for security, but I mean, I make a good amount, and I knew I could take it to the next step. And that's when it's funny that this guy, Mike Nation, which now I'm definitely going to be listening and watching same way I do you. Yeah, that's all. Sorry, I'm taken back because I love the community is what I'm trying to say, I guess. Everyone is so willing to help, and you don't see that in business typically.
It's difficult. And the problem is that a lot of the details of entrepreneurship, as someone who owns his own company now and is doing this full time and started off as doing both working during the day and doing this at night and on the weekends, there's no single way to do it. It's hard to teach. There's some things that are kind of standard throughout this. And if you have a chance, make sure you check out the Reddit entrepreneurial subreddit. There's things you have to pull from everywhere. And it's not everybody has a different idea of what they want to do and how they want to do it. So it's kind of hard to learn in a classroom environment. It's almost one of those where you have to be thrown into it and hit the wall full steam a couple of times before you figure out how to make your way around the wall. And you need that. You have to learn it somewhere, and you're not going to learn it unless you hit the wall. So that's what I tell people when they want to make their own business. Just go do that. Go figure it out. And it's either going to make it or break it. And you're going to break it. It's going to fail. Something's not going to go well a couple of times at least. And you're going to figure out what made it not fail, and you're going to work around it. You're going to make it better. And eventually you're going to find that thing that balances out what people need versus what you can provide, and find a way to make a business on that particular thing. It's not easy, or else everyone would be doing it. But you're never going to do it if you don't start.
Very true. Well, I mean, I don't want to. I'm sure there's other people chomping at the bits to speak to you, so I'm going to let you go on that note, and I'm going to keep on listening. And I appreciate your time in answering all these questions.
Best of luck, sir. Let us know how it goes.
Hey, I will.
That's and at least we still have power. So there you go. The lights are back on. We got one more call. We can still keep taking phone calls because I'm still talking. And I'm not yet at a point where I have to stop. And the stream is up, so we got to take advantage of that. The 713 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Yes, sir, I am. My name is John from Houston.
Welcome, John. What can we do for you?
I appreciate you taking my call. I've been in project management and listening for a little bit, but sounds like I'm one of the older callers on this show right about now. So
you're in good company.
Trying to figure out. I'm just trying to figure out what my next step would be. I mean, getting older and everything, and breaking into IT because it appears to be the future now. And so I've been working closely with our IT guy that I work at in the office.
Great.
And so I've been learning a lot about the network and servers and everything and how it works. And he recommended your videos, so I watched all 77 of them over the past 2 weeks. Got all my notes and studying right now.
Nice.
So hopefully I'll knock it out this year. Moving forward, I see a lot of positions for IT project managers.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get my basis down. As we all know, project managers, everybody's a project manager. You manage when you wake up in the morning to the time you go to sleep. What path would you recommend following my A+, to get to either managing databases or, cloud organization, security, because my interests kind of lie in the security side.
Okay. The part that's always interesting to me is there's in IT, we're doing a whole lot of things at one time. It sometimes can be very chaotic. You have things that go wrong a lot that have to be addressed. There's fires going on that have to be put out. It's not one of these kinds of jobs where you walk in the morning and it's exactly the same thing past 8 o'clock all the way up until 5, and then you go home at the end of the day and you can forget about it. That is not a job in IT. No one has ever had a job like that in IT. There's always chaos. And amongst all of that are some projects that have to get done. And there are some significant projects in IT that happen that are multi-million-dollar implementations of many, many different technologies, whether it's security or cloud or whatever it is. Project management becomes an important part of that. And that's why you've seen a lot of these schools that are focusing on IT. One of the classes is project management. You're required to get at least Project Plus as the certification to take away with you, because we don't do project management well in IT, or we don't tend to do it well unless we have somebody who's really staying honest and doing that piece. The project managers don't necessarily have to be the most technical people on the team. They're the ones that have to be the most organized on the team because they're the ones keeping people on track. It helps if you have some knowledge on what's going on behind the scenes so that when somebody talks about configuring these applications and making sure that the containerization is working properly once we virtualize it, you have to understand, okay, is that good? Is that bad? It helps if you have some perspective on what that's going to take so you can put that at least on the Gantt chart. The thing that you run into constantly, though, is the value of the project manager in IT. So there are some organizations where it's a staple. It's integrated into the DNA. It's a necessity. I see this a lot in extremely large organizations, companies that are government contractors where there's third parties they're dealing with, and companies that are creating their own product. The project management piece becomes incredibly important. On other types of IT environments, maybe not the same level of importance, but it's still there. So the more you know technically, the better off you're going to be. But ultimately in IT, if you're approaching this as in project management, the project management piece is going to be the most important piece, which is good for you. And everything else is kind of gravy on top of that.
Okay. Again, it's just, my background is project management for 10 years and, with the master's in business and everything else, I want to make sure if I do start to apply to some of these project manager positions, I have something on the resume. I overheard you say certifications are great. Hands-on would be even better. Taking an entry-level position at this point in my career might be kind of tough.
Right.
So, you see all the Scrum and Agile and everything.
Yep.
I look at that and I say, that's what I do on my whiteboard,
right.
In that exact same way. So how do you portray yourself to these HR or directors and everything that say, I can do this and here's my background that leads me to say, the hands-on aspect of the IT. I don't have IT experience, but I do have all this management experience. I know how to work with people and how to get the job done.
This is one of those things that when you get to a certain age, you start to realize that it's not just what you know, but indeed it really is who you know. And I mentioned this earlier about knowing the people where I go to work. That's what we tend to also rely on much more as we have more years in this industry, because people know what you're capable of. They're more apt to hire you for that particular function. And that's maybe the place where you focus on is going back to LinkedIn, finding the people who are doing the things that you would like to be able to do and see if they would hire you on. You probably have some people in your history that have that knowledge or at least know of you that you could start building on, or at least approach and say, if I want to do this next year, what do I need to do? You've at least got a Rolodex you can go to be able to ask people. You don't have to necessarily go to the user group meeting because you don't know anybody. You probably have a nice list of names. Like, hey, I haven't talked to you in a while. We worked back at blah, 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 but I'm looking at doing something like this now. What do you think? And you're going to get some feedback, and they may be able to tell you, and they might have some ideas about what's going on right now that you could slide into. That's what you have to do, is just keep banging on the doors and finding those people and taking advantage of those contacts, because nobody's going to help you more than you and the people you know.
All right. That makes perfect sense. Well, again, I appreciate you taking the call, and keep doing this. I know there's a lot of people out there that are learning a lot, that are, my age and older. So, yeah, we do appreciate it.
You're quite welcome, sir. I'll keep doing it as long as you keep watching. Let's go down to the phone call. I've got a little more juice in me. Let's go 240 area code. Are you there, caller?
Yes. Hello.
Hi. What's your name?
My name is Liz.
Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Hi. I just wanted to. I do have a question, but first, let me take time to thank you for providing all these sessions to study groups.
Quite welcome.
A friend of ours, me and my husband, he's into IT also, and he pointed us to that same direction, to your direction.
Nice.
that I've been watching. I've been trying to. I've actually taken my A plus twice, and I've actually failed both of them. I just kind of. I'll admit, I did try to study on my own, and then I failed both of those tests. So now I'm watching the videos and reading my books and studying the pamphlets and everything. My question is, originally I was in school. I went to IT Tech before it shut down. I did get an associate's. And right now I'm working at a company where we repair and service laptops for students at the schools. And then I occasionally also work as help desk. I want to, I guess, I want to advance my skills. I want to push myself more, but I don't know where to start. I can't go to school right now as I currently don't have, the funds or the means to do it. I'm working full time. I'm also a full-time mother also. And I'm trying to figure out where else can I go to besides my certification. And I know I'm in a good place where I'm starting, but I want to push myself more. I remember there was talk about VMware and stuff. I definitely want to do more hands-on. I'm just trying to figure out where I should be able to start. What can I do? What else can I do?
This is really the best kind of problem that you could hope to have, which is you're in a good spot now. How do you make it to the next place you want to be? And it is first the broader question you have to answer, which is what direction do you want to go? Do you know if you want to go down virtualization and cloud? Do you want to do more server hardware? Do you want to get into networking? Is security a long-term goal? Do you even have an idea yet?
Well, originally I wanted to go into security. I still plan on doing it, but as I progress, I see there's more options like cloud. I want to learn coding. I definitely want to stay away from networking. Networking is a weak spot for me. I cannot. I've tried subnetting and everything else, trying to learning it, and it doesn't click. It's just not my strong point.
Gotcha.
I can get the basics, but then after that, it's kind of I fall off the cliff on that part.
But that's good to know. At least that is sometimes the hardest part, which is where do I go next? And not going the right direction is almost just as valuable. So let's say you were going to go into virtualization and cloud, which is a very nice place to start looking around because there's a lot of need. We're really at the very beginning of cloud. We haven't quite made the most of it yet. We have great ideas about what we want to do with the cloud and virtualization. And most organizations, they've not really been able to realize it yet. And that's why they need people that are knowledgeable on these pieces. Well, there's a great place to go. And you mentioned earlier, VMware, one of the most popular virtualization platforms in the world. There's tons of content on the internet dealing with VMware and setting it up. There may even be, depending on where you live, a local VMware user group. These are the things that you need to start at least gathering information on and trying to find out more information about. It's a difficult set of technologies to get into unless you're able to get your hands on some of these training classes. Fortunately, it's so much easier now on the internet because you've got Lynda and Udemy and all of these other training places where the classes are relatively inexpensive. You can get your hands on some of the same training that those IT professionals are taking who are already in a VMware position. You can take exactly the same training class. So that may be the place to start your efforts, especially considering all the other responsibilities you have. That's something you can sit at home, learn about, and even go out and get the certification in before even having any real production hands-on. And that's what employers love to be able to see, is somebody who has some knowledge in that particular area.
All right, that does sound, because like I said, I discussed it with my husband and we both agree that I do need, for me to go, I need more training, I need more certifications, and I definitely want to push myself to, because I love the job I have right now, but I feel like I can do more. Like, I can better myself.
You're absolutely right. And IT is one of those places where it actually happens. You're actually able to do that. So you're on absolutely the right track. Keep doing what you're doing there and start supplementing that, because eventually, whether it's in your organization or one you're going to run into, you're going to need to make that change and do that particular role. That's one of the things also, it's a little bit more of a challenge, but if you manage it properly, in IT, the way that you really move up a lot of times is moving out. You're moving to another organization to do these things. And if the people who are finding that a comfortable process, who make that a comfortable process, tend to do better in IT because you're going to jump around quite a bit.
All right. Well, then, thank you for answering my question and making time for this study session. I'm actually at work right now, but I'm repairing a device, and I saw you had a group study, and I never saw you seen your video live, and it was lucky enough that you had a studio line, and I wanted to ask a question.
Perfect.
So,
well, best of luck with that.
Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome. Thanks for calling.
Have a great day.
You too. That's one of the nicest things I think about IT is that you can decide where you'd like to go and you go there. It is not any more difficult than that. There are people that decide they don't want to go anywhere. That's fine too. Find the place where you're comfortable and you're in good shape. Not all of us can sit around in that comfortable spot though. Speaking about that, let's see time-wise where we can get a couple more in. Let's hope. Hey, caller 209 area code. You're on. What's your name?
My name is Randall Rocco. How are you?
Hello, Randall. Thank you for calling. What can we do for you?
Nothing. I just want to thank you for the excellent videos. I get to listen to an expert for free. The only thing I'm mad about, Professor Messer,
let's hear it.
is that a lot of all the goodness doesn't stick.
Yeah.
I have to view your videos 2 or 3 times. That's the only thing I'm mad about. Keep up the good work, sir.
You're quite welcome, sir. Thank you for calling. I appreciate that, and I'll do what I can to be a little more sticky.
Thanks again. I'm online.
Take care. That's always the challenge. Don't want to be too sticky, but you want to be sticky enough. I get it. Let's go to the 510 area code. Are you there, caller? What's your name?
Hey, how's it going? My name is Lan.
Hey, Lan. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
I've been doing a whole lot of researching, and it seems like everything keeps coming back to Professor Messer. So, I am working right now. I'm looking for a career change. Haven't really been into anything dealing with computers, but I know that's the route that I want to go into. So, what do you think? Is there an age on when you should be getting started to where you end up having to go to help desk and getting your cert A's and everything like that?
Fortunately, the computer has no idea what age you are, which I'm happy to say, by the way. It has no clue whatsoever. So the beauty about this is that there's no physical requirement. There's nothing you have to be able to drop everything in the world and somehow manage your way into this business. Most of the time, it's really what you know is valuable. And it doesn't matter really what age you are. If you know it, people need your skills to be able to handle those types of things. Now, I will say, just like in any other part of society, I have seen cases of ageism in hiring practices. It's sometimes difficult for an old guy like me to walk in the door and want to get started with some of these technical positions. And companies don't want to hire someone who is older into something that's considered to be kind of the entry-level positions. And that's something I think as we get older, and I mentioned this on an earlier call, who you know becomes really helpful. And you're able to pull from other people you know in the industry who know your skills, who recognize you're someone trustworthy, who you're good to work with, and you'd be a great person to have on the team, and they're more comfortable hiring someone like that. There is, I think, also in technology, some of the higher end positions, you tend to get people who are a little bit older because they've been through the learning process and been through the ranks and moved up that way. So if you have a way to kind of get in touch with those folks, sometimes that can help as well. It can give you that additional opportunity that maybe someone wouldn't give you because of the age associated with who you are when you're walking in the door. But you will find, and this is probably more true in technology than other types of vertical markets, what you know becomes extremely valuable. And it really doesn't matter how old you are. If somebody has a need and that's a painful need, they want somebody who's able to fix that problem. They don't care if they fly somebody in, if they drag them in. If you can fix that issue, they want you on board.
Okay, so would it be best to just jumpstart and just go straight to the CCNA certs and just skip over the Cert A's, or just go ahead and get it started from where it is and work my way up that way?
It depends, because some places and some people will tell you, don't worry about the A+, don't worry about the Network Plus, don't worry about Security Plus, don't worry about the CompTIA stuff. Just jump right into the Cisco, because Cisco is so marketable. The problem is the entry-level Cisco exam it's a very difficult exam. You need a nice foundation before you walk in the door with that exam. And you need to spend a lot of time on it. And I'm speaking as someone who's put together some Cisco content recently and really had to go through it in detail. It's not a bad strategy though. If you're someone who can you get networking, you understand it, it excites you, you can put up Packet Tracer and start piecing things together and building certain network configurations, and that's your thing, why not start there? It's not a bad idea to be able to have that capability. And it's a very marketable set of skills that you can use in many, many different places. So they're not wrong to mention that, but it has quite a ramp, has quite a learning curve associated with it. And you have to spend a lot of time getting into it. And then once you're into it, it's got its own curve from there. So it may take you extra time, but if you're like me, you got some time on your hands. Why not start at the best place you can?
I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for calling.
All right.
That's one where it's a difficult situation to know where to start. A lot of people are saying many different things, and ultimately you kind of have to find your own path with those things anyway. That's one of the challenges we all have when we're working, not just at the beginning, but all the way through from those pieces, and having that there. Very quickly in the chat room, some folks are asking about other certification tracks, one specifically around the wireless technologies. Wireless is, we sort of maxed it out at this point. There was a wireless boom, I don't know, 15 years ago, 10 years ago. We kind of wirelessed ourselves up, and now we're good. Now we kind of have everything from an 802.11 perspective. We kind of got the technology down. It's more commoditized now. The only other place wireless is doing something kind of on the cellular wireless side would probably be an interesting place to be, but there's not a huge opportunity for that. Those are very large companies that are in very large geographies. You don't see those spread everywhere, so that's not exactly what you would run into. But wireless tends to be pretty well understood at this point, and breaking those out. I haven't seen people say there's been an increase in WPA2 vulnerabilities. There really hasn't been. WPA2 is still solid. The vulnerabilities people have seen were with the implementation of WPA2 on a workstation. So it had nothing to do with the access point at all. So there's no real cryptography issue with that at all. So I don't see there's not going to be WPA3. There's not going to be, the next one. We're not even working on it. WPA2 seems to be working fine for wireless and what we're doing. So I think we're good there, thankfully. Thankfully, that wasn't as bad as they made it out to be. The media likes to grab those problems, and it's now the world's ending. And it really wasn't ending at all. It was actually most systems were already patched before the announcement of the vulnerability was made. And once they're patched, they're not vulnerable. So they're done. I think they'll tweak the standard a bit, but it'll still be WPA2. That's the idea. That's the goal of the standard anyway. So everybody will just write to that going forward with those pieces. No Cisco playlist anytime soon. No plans anyway. For those in the chat room asking, because I mentioned Cisco there for a moment. There was some ideas. People always want more Cisco. It's a very competitive market. I do have some content I've written. I've got my ICND1 course notes that I sell but no videos to go along with them, at least not right now. The focus currently, I'm building out the newest Security Plus course. Videos are posted on that every few days. You'll see the last couple of months on my YouTube channel. That's all that's there, Security Plus. Right after that's done, during the March timeframe, it looks like Network Plus will be updated. So there'll be a bunch of new Network Plus content coming down the line. That's what's going to keep me busy for the next 6 months. So I got stuff to do. At least maybe not 6 months, maybe shorter than that. But that's the idea. And then who knows? Well, I have no idea what happened. I have an idea, but I don't know exactly what's going to happen after that. We'll have to wait and see. And with that, I think we've come to the end of this study group. It's this was a good solid 2 hours on the line and afterwards talking with everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for hanging in till the very end. Thank you for your phone calls. Thank you for the questions in the chat room. Thanks for your joining us in that first hour as well. Keep track of what we're doing. We got a new A+ question every day. You can find me at professormesser.com/Twitter. Join that there. We've got another study group planned for next month. Make sure you join us there. If you're into networking, we're going to do this exact same thing next Wednesday with the Network Plus study group. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next time on the A+ study group.